Hey, J-Bone Nation! Shaming of Jay. He's not a dopey dumb bitch. He gets laid. The court jester, the court DJ. It's time to dive into the case. To the case.
What's up, everybody?
Good morning. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
I put
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Yeah, we tease them a lot because we got them on the spot. Welcome back. Yo, and if you're new to the show, welcome home. What's up, my brother?
What is up? I put our picture up there in the beginning because I got some comments. What is that picture? So I wanted everyone to see. That is Mandy made. That's, if you don't know, that's from Step Brothers. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. And that's our AI, our faces on their face.
Dude, I've like, am I hot mic'd? Like, so when you pop that up and I say, like, can they hear us when
I couldn't hear
laughing?
if you mute yourself. I didn't hear it.
All right, cool. Because I like, as soon as you're like, you're gonna love this, and you popped it up, I was like rolling. It was hilarious. I love that.
So that's the bottom picture if you see our little court. And there's Mandy who made that. The wonderful Mandy.
Morning, everybody. Morning, our mods. We love you. Morning, Mandy, Dizzy. We got the whole crew in here. Meg, Raz, all the people, CH, all the homies. All the homies are in here. Everybody have a good night last night? Everybody get a good night's sleep? It takes a lot. You have to really be well rested to deal with Pumpkinhead for a full day. You know, it's like we have to really gird her up, you know,
particularly when it's forensic accounting, which, by the way, I got some comments. We love you, forensic accountants and accountants. We need you too. But sometimes the it can be a little boring.
Yeah, look, this is no indictment on the human that happens to be a forensic accountant, because I'm sure they're wonderful, amazing humans. That's a boring ass job. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, like, unless you love crunching numbers. Like, see, I'm very biased. I was terrible at math, hence law school. You know, like I'm not like a numbers dude. It's like Scout was asking me, Dad, can you help me with geometry last night? And I'm like, no, I don't. It's like they pulled me out of geometry in high school because I just didn't get it. It just doesn't compute with me. It's like I'm not that brained. So
you know what you gotta do, Bob? Are you familiar with the app? I think it's called Photomath. There's like an app where you could take a picture of the equation and then it like helps you figure it out. I use that or YouTube. I like Google whatever the hell they're doing, and I try to like watch this guy. He knows what he's doing on YouTube.
I mean, when are we figuring out equations now? As a grown man, I haven't needed to figure out an equation in 30 years.
That's what my kids say, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't know what to tell you. I shouldn't have to learn it either. But you got to do. What can I tell you?
I mean, if you're going to be in science, if you're going to be in the science field somewhere, you know, equations are going to obviously matter. But, you know, if you're doing what we do, I don't need equations. And if I need them, I hire an expert. You know what I mean? It's like that's what we hire expert witnesses for. So you and I were talking, as everybody knows, if you guys were here or you were not here yesterday, just to let you know, Jay gave us a late update. They've got 11 out of the 16 jurors seated in the Karen Reed case, which to me indicates that it's a high likelihood that they'll get the whole damn jury impaneled today, which then leaves us with the situation where either the judge is going to say, all right, opening statements tomorrow, in which case Jay and I are making the pivot. Like just so you all know, and we're gonna restate it. We're when we said before we started, out of all fairness, that when Karen Reed starts, no matter where we're at in Daybell, we're gonna pivot over to Karen Reed. However, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be giving you all nightly updates through Shan's and Alice and Allie will be giving you guys, and we're going to figure out how we're going to put it together. So like the thought process is probably like kind of like seeing who the witness was and kind of going over like the most powerful evidence that was presented during that day, saving everyone hours and hours of their life. So that's how we're going to handle it. We hope that you guys are cool with it. We just think that Karen Reed's going to be one of those trials that it's a can't miss. I mean, I think typically, I think it's safe to say Jay and I would typically not pivot off a trial once we've started it, but this is one of those scenarios where it's required, I think.
Got it. I mean, my mom just said this morning she saw it on CNN. I mean, this is Karen Reed is a big deal. I mean, Val is too, but I mean, Chad is too. But like we've seen this trial already. We've
Exactly
pretty close to it. Plus, the audio is. I mean, it's better than it was the audio and video, but it's not going to be like Karen Reed's going to be like an act like trials we watched before, where you got a camera on the witness, you got a camera
right,
like, and they switch it. Whereas this is a Zoom and it's just like a fixed,
and it's like a whodunit.
Right. Exactly.
It's like you got these. It's like it's everything that we love about trials. We feel very, very confident that you guys at the end of the day will be very happy that we pivoted. And look, we got the Wicked Witch. That bitch is going down, man. She's gone down. So it's like Chad is just like, we need him to go down too. But like to me, the real evil was put down when Lori was convicted. So, like Jay said, we've had the trial, we've seen it. There's obviously some new stuff in this one. Like we had not seen the video of Chad and his daughter when he was in the squad. Like that was new, but for the most part, it's the same story. So if you guys have followed that, so we're very, very sorry if you're going to be disappointed, but hopefully you'll stick with us. We think that you'll really enjoy the Reed trial because we'll have a bunch of surprises for you guys, and we think we'll put on a hell of a trial for you. So,
yeah, and we'll still keep you updated. Like I said, at night, if you're not, if you like, we'll keep you updated. And also tonight, we're probably at around 9. We're gonna keep an eye on it because I feel bad. Steve, by the way, if I got my Murder Church hat on here, Publicly Buzzed. If you're subscribed to me and Bob and you like us, you're gonna love them. Please subscribe to Publicly Buzzed.
What about? I'm sorry. What I don't want to forget it. What about having Steve join us and then all three of us fucking stream it to our channels? Like, isn't that a good workaround? Steve loves this case.
We could do that. Steve isn't. It's up to Steve. Steve, you're in the chat. Let us know if you want to do like a triple. We could stream
a triple header,
a triple stream. I mean, we've done it. You and me we're on Nerdy, and right. I think that's possible.
It's 100% possible.
I don't know if he has any plans tonight, but if you want to do that, we could do a because the point of what we're doing is a background on Karen Reed. We want to get you, if you're not familiar with the case. I know our mods and a lot of people are working, so thank you guys are working on like Dizzy and more are working on graphics and timelines. We want to kind of get you up if you're not familiar, with the case.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So yeah, let us know about that, Steve-O. You don't have to do it in the chat. You could just
message us, or if you have something else planned, just let us know. We'll figure it out. But either way, at some point we're gonna be doing a background on the case to catch you guys up to date. If you're not, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of theories. So we'll keep you guys updated to let you know what the plan is. In the meantime, Looks like we're ready to go. We will keep you guys updated, and here we go.
Let's go. All right, I'm gonna run down
1623 State
grab
of
my
Idaho
coffee.
versus Chad
All right.
Guy Daybell. Continuing with evidence from the state in their case in chief, Mr. Douglas on the stand. I'll remind the witness still under oath for testimony in this case. I'll also note the jurors are all present, all 18 jurors, and properly seated. The court's received the juror affirmations from this morning as well regarding following the court's admonishing instruction each day. So thank you, each of you, for following that instruction. I'll also please remind all those in attendance here, there's a courtroom conduct order in effect that will be enforced. So please make sure any devices or anything that would be disturbing to the court or the jurors not take place. And with that in mind, I think, Mr. Wood, if you'd like to continue with direct examination, you can go ahead and do that.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
When we finished off yesterday, we'd gone over multiple financial timelines, correct?
Correct.
All right. In the course of your investigation, yesterday you spoke multiple times about Venmo.
Yes,
In the course of your investigation, did you investigate further into Venmo activity for Tylee Ryan?
I did.
And did you do so in view of the other facts of this case as well?
Yes, I did.
What records did you review in your investigation regarding Venmo activity?
So the original review was of the Venmo and of itself. Tylee had a Venmo account and Lori had two. And after reviewing the Venmo activity in of itself, I reviewed what is also called the funding source for the Venmo, being the credit cards and debit cards, bank accounts associated with those, or what the funds would have been drawn from.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be handed State's Exhibit 117.
That includes the two accounts that Lori had regarding Venmo as well as Tylee's.
All right. And did you prepare that in anticipation of testifying today?
I did.
Did you prepare that to aid the jury in understanding the Venmo activity on Tylee Ryan's account and how it might interact with this case?
That is correct.
Is that a true and accurate representation of the timeline or chart you created?
It is.
Your Honor, I'd ask that for demonstrative purposes, that State's Exhibit 117 be entered into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Judge.
Very well. Exhibit 117 is entered and admitted.
May I publish?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas, this chart doesn't all fit at once, so I'm going to start.
Sorry about that.
Can you talked about the documents you looked at to prepare this. Can you just explain for the jury in a little more detail how you put this together?
So starting in January of 2019, now you can see the three accounts. I labeled the funding sources that were associated with these accounts. As I stated yesterday, Lori had a few JP Morgan Chase accounts, but Tylee's JP Morgan Chase account was the only funding source associated with her Venmo account until September. And this also, the activity, the Venmo also provides who the funds are going to. And as associated would have been how that individual labeled themselves in Venmo.
All right. So can you tell us who was Tylee Venmoing money to?
So if you could slide it up a little bit, please. So as you can see, as I labeled from January 7th to August 7th, Tylee's account was associated with her JP Morgan account ending 3918. Her primary Venmo activity was to Colby Ryan, who was her older brother, as well as Kelsey Benson, who is Colby's significant other. Also a friend of hers, two of her friends, this Jillian Kennedy and a McKenna Webb, to which there was only one transaction each.
I'm going to point with my pen. So these payments, is that the number of payments being made?
That is correct. Throughout that time frame, that is the amount of payments associated with that account.
So how much did she send in that time frame to Colby Ryan?
Tylee?
Yes, I'm sorry, that wasn't very clear. How much
No.
did Tylee send to Colby Ryan?
So throughout that time frame, Tylee had Venmoed Colby 4 times for $170 total.
And so you talked about a change in the funding source. Is that represented on this chart?
It is.
Where is that?
If you'll slide it over slightly. And the jury will be able to associate this chart with the chart that we referenced yesterday, Tylee's bank account records, the orange being associated with the orange on that account or that chart, as well as the red being associated with the red on that chart as well. And the funding source, I tried to get as close to even as possible, being changed per Venmo September 10th of 2019.
And was there still Venmo activity after that?
There was.
And you have on here the move to Rexburg around September 1st.
Yes.
Right. And then that you have it labeled Tylee is killed on September 9th.
Correct.
Was there still Venmo activity after that?
There was.
What Venmo activity took place after that?
So the Venmo activity there in the bottom right, starting September 10th, going through December 18th to Colby Ryan.
And do you have an amount that was sent to Colby Ryan?
There were 29 payments throughout that time period, totaling $5,940.
And you said that Colby is Tylee's brother.
Older brother.
So Lori Vallow was his mother.
Correct.
It's be handed State's Exhibit Affidavit.
Exhibit 97 and Exhibit 97A are both admitted.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas, do you recognize State's Exhibit 97A?
I do.
What is it?
These are records provided from Etsy.
Okay. And what do they show?
They show purchase by Lori on the date of August 15th, 2019, for 2 items with the description of glow-in-the-dark malachite rings, malachite inlay titanium rings.
Your Honor, may I publish that exhibit for the jury?
You may.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. Hit that like on the way in for both channels if you're on there, if you could.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm at 48 likes, Jay Bird.
Let's get those likes up, folks. Let's
Let's
get them
get the
up.
likes up. It puts out in the world, and it's so simple to do and free.
Free.
It's free, Jay. It's free.
Free.com.
Mr. Douglas, if you can show the jury what you were just speaking of.
So the information being provided by Etsy here and the order date or the day of purchase being August 15th for the total value of the $259 shipped to Miss Lori Vallow. and the description being down here in this area.
And was there an email associated with Lori Vallow on that document?
Yes, there is.
What is it?
lollytime@icloud.com.
Detective, Mr. Douglas, I apologize. Did you do any further investigation into this purchase?
I did.
Was this purchase successful?
This purchase was returned. It was refunded to Miss Vallow.
And do you know why?
No, but not at this time for this one specifically.
All right. Your Honor, the state has no further questions at this time.
All right, cross-examination, Mr. Pryor.
That's great news, Jay. Great news.
Seriously.
Y'all don't mind me. I'm eating some pistachios, so don't judge me.
Love a good pistachio.
What a nut. It's a delicious nut.
You previously mentioned that that we can refer to you as Mr. Douglas, right?
Yes, sir. That'll be fine.
Not agent.
No, sir. Not an agent, forensic accountant, sir.
Okay. I recall you putting up one of the exhibits where it reflected that Chad purchased a phone prior to meeting Lori Vallow. Do you
Yes.
recall that?
I do.
Okay. And what was the purpose of putting that particular identifier on the Tammy's or the life timeline that you created in that situation?
So when we requested the information from Walmart that they provided regarding all the electronics, that being one, I found that substantial because of the continued pattern of the purchase of cell phones throughout the time frame.
Okay. And did you look into what kind of phone that was?
It was provided, yes.
Okay. What kind of phone was that?
I can't say off the top of my head, sir.
Okay.
It's in my reports, but I can't remember.
It's one of those, and I don't want to use this term loosely, but it's one of those disposable phones. Would that be fair?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
And those either are required for you to add minutes to them, or you just purchase a new one. They're a relatively inexpensive way to have a second phone. Would you agree with that?
Yes, the purchase was inexpensive.
Guys, real quick, I'm doing a test here. I just put on the top of the screen, top left of the screen, a QR code, and I want to see if this works. It should take you to the Defense Diaries link tree. Let me know if that works.
Right. And the continuing purchases of those phones was an inexpensive way
Cool. So
to have
cool.
a second phone,
If
right?
it works, it's definitely.
It would have
I
been.
thought I had to get an actual
And
QR
if you're
code. But I
having
think
an
I just put the
affair with
link in and
another
it worked.
woman and you're married,
That's awesome.
that's a pretty ideal way to hide the fact that you're having an affair by using a phone like that. Wouldn't you agree?
If you say so, sir.
Well, it's not me saying so. I asked you.
Well, I never purchased a phone for that purpose.
Well, I didn't ask you if you did, but would you agree that,
It could be used for that,
could
sure.
be used? Right. Okay.
That's sick. It works, and it shows. I don't know if you could see on your end, Bob, but I could see 9 people have scanned it. Yeah, and it works. So if you have your camera, you just put it on the thing. It'll take I could put any link in there. That's really cool.
Awesome.
Now,
I
you also-
can't see how many people have. Oh yeah, it
Do you
popped
see
up. And yeah, 10 viewers scan the code. That's awesome,
This
dude.
is so cool.
That
All right,
is so cool.
check out Bob's link tree with the podcast. Everything is there, folks.
talked about the number of items about purchases made. Is there any indication that in all of the financial records you examined, that there was any commingling? I guess that's a divorce term. Combining of assets between Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow.
There's no indication that money from Chad's account went into Lori's or Lori's account going into Chad's, or no.
Okay. Now, we'll turn to Exhibit 112. And Judge, could I have Exhibit 112? if you would prefer to.
We've got the exhibit here.
Okay, thank
We'll have, Mr. Pryor will have the court's exhibit. If you'd like the witness to review that, you can have it taken him as well.
Do you have a recollection of 112, or would it help for you to just,
If you pull it up, sir, I'll know which one it is.
if I could use the projector, Judge?
Yeah, it's been admitted, so the projector can be turned on.
Skill level here is at best.
Bro,
Okay, so we
you're
we
putting
start this
a
with
fucking paper on a screen, and you got my skill level at best.
How do I use the
4/3 of
Elmo?
2018.
What's the Elmo?
To your knowledge, Chad Daybell wasn't in the picture at that point, right?
No, sir.
And there's no indication that Chad Daybell knew Lori Vallow? Sir?
The reason I put this on here, sir,
I
was
didn't
because
ask you that. I just want you to answer my questions. I don't want.
there's nothing that shows that Chad knew Lori at this time.
Okay, thank you. And at that point, Chad also didn't know Tylee Ryan, right?
No, not that I know of.
And there's no indication that at all that Chad Daybell knew Joe Ryan, correct?
No indication that I know of.
And there's no indication in 4/3 of 2018 that Chad Daybell knew JJ Vallow, correct?
Sorry, state that again.
There's no indication that Chad Daybell knew JJ Vallow, correct?
At this time? No.
Okay. And then we'll move on to your timeline of 6/14 of 2018. Tylee starts receiving Social Security payments. Same questions. Chad Daybell, to your knowledge, didn't know Tylee at this point, correct?
That, not to my knowledge. No.
That's how
JJ?
you control.
Lori?
Not to my knowledge.
I'm talking
Okay.
Disney, not Dizzy. That's how you
We
control
can skip Tylee
cross-examination.
receiving her GED.
Mhm.
10/23/18. Lori opens that BBVA account on 10/23 of 18. At
Fair
that
enough.
point,
Fair enough.
Chad Daybell doesn't know Lori at that point either, right?
No, as indicated below, it would have been 3 days prior to that.
3 days prior?
This account would have been opened on 10/23.
boots
Chad
on
and
the
Lori met on
ground.
10/26.
Right.
So 3 days
Chad-
prior.
I see what you're saying.
Hating
I'm
on
sorry, I wasn't
Pryor.
tracked, sir.
The jury's
okay.
like
That was my
shooting
bad.
darts at
You're
him
fine.
with their eyes.
Thank you.
You son of a bitch.
So then we go to 10/26/18.
I mean, that's pretty. Like they just started. They got like if they already don't like him, and they got like 8 more weeks to go, man.
Dude,
Ooh.
they're gonna be hating his ass by the end. This guy wears the same suit every day. What a scumbag!
And no one's gonna tell him. No one's he doesn't have anyone to tell him. Like, dude, they're giving you dirty looks.
And it's
And there's
true
an indication that Lori
because he may not be aware of it. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah.
he's the only dude there. That's what we were talking about yesterday. He doesn't have that trial partner and be like, "Hey, John, you know the jury seems to really fucking hate you, dude. Maybe you want to switch it up a little bit."
Right. And I don't picture him as like there are a lot of attorneys I think that scan like YouTube and like comment section. I don't picture John Pryor as being the guy who's going on like websites to see like what
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah,
saying about him.
he's not Shannon Smith, popping on TikTok watching
Right.
shit at night. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Vallow came into a life insurance policy as the result of the death of Joseph Ryan. And she received a payment of $64,964.52. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, that's, and I need you to clarify this for me because it's important. That wouldn't have been the time she applied for the insurance money, correct?
No, this is when it was paid into her account.
Well, how
She would have
long?
applied earlier.
Okay, and I'm going to slow down so I don't interrupt you again, or I'm going to hear about it.
Thanks, Simi. Simi liked both. We appreciate
Any
you
idea
guys
from
do
your
that.
Thank you,
experience
Timmy.
how long it takes to apply for life insurance payments before you generally would get those payments?
Well, in my experience specific to this case, sir, Chad applied and he received one check within a week.
Okay. And that was in regards to Tammy, right?
That is correct.
But I'm talking about in your experience with this one.
This one specifically took a little longer from what I remember regarding this.
Do you have a recollection of how long it took?
I don't, not off the top of my head, sir.
Okay. would it be fair to say that Lori had been anticipating receiving this almost $65,000 prior to the time that she met Chad Daybell or was ever introduced to Chad Daybell?
Lori knew about this before she met Chad Daybell.
Okay. And then on 12/10 of 18, Tylee starts getting paid. And please clear that by the JNS.
JNS Investments, this is her uncle's business.
Okay.
That's the name that they were under.
Okay. And then Tylee begins making monthly payments to T-Mobile on 2/25 of 19, right?
Correct.
Charles, and that would be Charles Vallow, right?
Correct.
Co-signs for Tylee to get a Jeep. And Tylee begins making monthly payments. Okay. Is that fair in the squares I've represented there?
That's correct, yes.
And then you put down that Charles Vallow dies on 7/11/19, right?
Correct.
So what I'm having some difficulty with is this is Tylee's financial timeline, right?
Correct. That's what it's labeled, sir.
And it's talking about Tylee's, how she's spending her money and the manner in which she's spending the money, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Chad Daybell has nothing to do with any of the transactions above, right?
Not on this, no.
Okay. And the only reference to Chad Daybell is you put, well, when they met, right?
Correct.
And then you put that Charles Vallow dies, right?
Yes.
You're not trying to imply that because of financial reasons in this particular exhibit, Chad Daybell had anything to do with the death of Charles Vallow, are you?
What I'm implying on this specific timeline, sir, was where Tylee's funds were going to come from and then what she spent them on. This is specifically to show on Tylee's
Okay.
spending habits, sir.
And I don't want to put an answer in your mouth to testify, but that wasn't really my question. My
No,
question.
because that's not the reason that I built this
Thank you.
timeline.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, you sneak up behind me there. Is that where you went?
I don't know about you, Jay, but when he talked about putting something in his mouth, I almost threw up in my mouth, Jay.
A little
wanna put that
vommy,
out
a
there.
little vommy moment.
Yeah.
There was a discussion on one of your exhibits where you talked about Lori mentioning to Chad about receiving a $4,000 payment. Do you remember that?
I do.
What exhibit was that again?
That's noted on a couple. It was on the one that you just handed back.
Okay. And then on the other one, it was.
It would have been regarding JJ as well.
I'm just going to say both of you are kind of getting into a habit of talking over each other. Please try to avoid that. For our
And if I could have exhibit
Mr.
114.
Pryor, you just talked right over me when I was telling
sorry,
you, please not do that.
Whoa.
Thank you.
And if I could have
Someone's in
exhibit
trouble.
114, Judge.
Ooh, you got in trouble.
Judges had it with Pryor.
It does make it impossible for a court reporter to, I mean,
Thank you.
that part of it's so true. One at a time. Court reporter can't delineate
Judge,
between
if I
two people
publish
yapping
this.
at the same time.
You may.
Oops.
I put the document upside down. Hold on, I'm trying to figure out the Elmo still. Hold on. Oh,
Exercise.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe not. Hopefully you can read that about the 4,000 month in insurance from. Oh, there. So on this particular chart, this was JJ's financial?
This would have been a timeline regarding JJ's or transaction regarding JJ.
Okay, so the financial transaction regarding JJ, again, you put on there that Chad, Daybell, and Lori meet, right?
I did.
And then a box right next to it, again, you put down that Charles Vallow dies.
Correct.
Okay. And then on 7/18, after Charles Vallow's death, it says something about Lori texting Chad about receiving $400 a month in Social Security, but nothing from the insurance company.
Stay current.
That is correct. It's 4,000, not 400.
What?
Sorry, that Cat Toes put a comment up at about 10 a.m. I hope she was asking if it was worth going back to the beginning. Nah,
Not really. No.
just stay current with us.
4,000. I'm sorry. Thank you. And at this point, was there any other indication in your investigation that they ever talked prior to that time about any financial matters like Social Security or insurance?
Not that I can recall at this time, sir.
Okay. And this text was in the form of expressing her displeasure about the fact that this is what she discovered after Charles's death, right?
It could be said that way, sir.
Okay.
Jay,
And then we go on
called me
to,
out. She said, "Did Bob just make fun of someone about tech?" Well played, Ginger Snap.
Good form.
Well
Good
played.
form.
Well, before I go there, there was nothing to indicate that Chad Daybell had any financial interest in that Social Security or insurance at that point on 7/18 of 2019, correct?
I don't know of a response regarding that.
Okay. You didn't find anything that showed that Chad had any financial link to any of those accounts, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then Lori posts a dog for sale on 8/9 of 19, right?
Yes.
And then on 8/12, she names Colby Ryan the insurance beneficiary on her life policy?
Yes.
Okay. Now, at that point, at least we are aware that
Dude, you
her
gotta
and Chad
put-
are
you
involved
gotta
in a
put
relationship of
Shiraz's
some point in
comment
time,
from
right?
10:04
I think
up on the screen about
It's fair
prior.
to say.
Like, what an amazing analogy. It's so good. It's the diaper analogy. You'll see
Bob,
it.
Bob, 10:04. You mean from 1 hour ago or like 11:04?
Oh, yeah. For me, 10:04.
Okay,
For
all right.
you,
Let
11:04.
me find it.
Sorry.
I don't
I
understand.
was like, are you behind again?
Time change
And yet at
differences.
that point, she names as a beneficiary on her life insurance policy and Colby Ryan's her son, right?
Yes.
With the deceased Joseph Ryan?
I believe so.
Okay, so she puts an insurance policy on her name, not Chad's at that point, or puts it on Colby's name, not Chad's, for 100% of the beneficiary, right?
Correct.
And then she also previously, we talked towards the end of your testimony about the fact that she made numerous payments to Colby Ryan, right?
Correct.
And that was after, well after the last known sign of life
I'm
of
feeling pretty good.
JJ Vallow, correct?
Yes.
So she was giving, at least in some indication, money to Colby Ryan.
Pretty good.
And on 8/12 of 19, after Charles Vallow dies, she puts Colby Ryan on her insurance policy. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, then on 8/14, she applies for an apartment in Rexburg. And at that point, she's receiving a bit of money, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then she moves to Rexburg on 9/1. This is going to be a task. Bear with me, please.
All right.
I'm a lawyer, not a audiovisual person.
Dude, it's a fucking overhead projector, bro.
But in
Why are
any
you
event,
making
then
this
we
harder than it is?
move on. She moves to Rexburg. And at this point, there's still no financial link between Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow, correct?
Correct.
And then on 9/8/19, when there's a last known sign of regarding Tylee Ryan, on 9/8 of 19, there's still no financial link between Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow of any kind. Is that correct?
There are no accounts with them associating funds at this time.
And then the prosecutor's assertion that the last known sign of life with JJ Vallow was on 9/22/19. Again, there were no accounts that were mingled at that point, correct?
Correct.
And there was nothing financially showing them linked in any way, correct?
Correct.
And then after the fact that when they got married, Again, there was no joint accounts to your knowledge, correct?
Correct.
Not sure how we're going to do that. Part of the email searching that you did as a result of was that part of Tylee's?
Yes, that would have been on Tylee, sir.
Okay. And as far as financial, I found that a little unusual that you would include Google search for the wind direction on Tylee's financial.
Sure.
Okay, that's not something of the ordinary, right?
Not necessarily, sir.
Okay, but you didn't include the emails after that talked about Mr. Daybell burning some tree limb.
I didn't find that.
Objection, that's a fact, not an evidence.
Sustained. There wasn't any mention of that.
Did you have any occasion to review the emails and when you prepared all of this timeline?
I was told about it, yes.
Okay.
That one I was told about.
Okay, and that's not a fact of significance. The fact that there was a
So I just saw that someone else scanned the code. Here's the question I have: can just you and me in the studio see that like when people scan this code, or like folks on you when you're on YouTube, does it come up that like for you that someone scared the code? Let me know.
the fact that you checked the wind
it pops up like in the
isn't really
middle of
relevant
the
to Tylee's
screen up
financial
top.
in terms of how the money
You
was
guys
spent,
can see
right?
Not
Oh, they see it too. Oh, that's cool. So
That's
everyone.
awesome.
Excuse me. It's not regarding the financial transactions,
Okay.
no.
So when we're talking about Tylee's financial, the wind direction really isn't relevant to that issue, correct?
Not to that, no.
Okay. And then, so why wouldn't you mention the fact that Mr. Daybell, if the wind issue wasn't relevant to that, why wouldn't you mention the fact that Mr. Daybell sent a text message to his wife saying that he was burning limbs the next morning, the following morning?
Because I didn't discover that, sir.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm a fancy boy, Dizzy. I'm a fancy boy.
Now, as part of this timeline, you talked about the financial situation of JJ,
That's
Lori,
exactly how I described
and
it.
Tylee.
The fancy boy.
And in none of these timelines, I see a situation or a box where it talks about Lori sort of being out of the picture for a time during these range of events. Were you aware that Lori Vallow had temporarily relocated by herself to Hawaii around February 1st of 2019?
There are transactions that support that. She was coming and going from Arizona to Hawaii, yes.
Well, coming and going, or was she staying in Hawaii for 2
I couldn't prove that she relocated.
Okay. But you can show that she was in Hawaii at least on around the 1st of February, correct?
Yes, and so was Tylee.
And from the whole time?
Both of them came and went.
Okay. And in 2019 also till about the end of March. Would that be consistent with what you found as well?
I would say there's transactions that support that.
Okay. Okay. And then in addition, during that time, did you have any indication of any transactions relating to JJ as to where he was during that time?
I'd have to review. I can't say right now.
Would it surprise you to learn that at about the same time frame of February 1st till the end of March that JJ Vallow was predominantly with Charles Vallow?
He was his father, so it wouldn't surprise me, no.
Okay. Okay. Would that have any impact? Would you be able to determine whether that being separated and the receiver of those benefits being in another part of the country and the child being with the father when the parties are separated, would that
Morning, Yurts.
cause any financial troubles for Ms. Vallow?
What benefits are you speaking of, sir?
As Social Security?
Tylee was the only one receiving Social Security at that time.
Morning, Lynn True Crime Project. Got some latecomers popping in.
On
Jeff.
February 1st of
pop in. Thank you,
2019.
folks. Hit that
Correct.
mic on the way in.
Tylee was the only receiving it.
Oh, I'm sorry. There were other benefits that as a result of the death of Joseph. No, I'm sorry. You're right. That's correct. I stand corrected. Excuse me. Now, we talked a little bit on
Pull your
Exhibit
head out of your
116.
ass,
or you
Pryor.
did, about a life insurance situation with Tammy Daybell, correct?
I did.
Okay, and on 116, you talked about the map. I think it was Map Life is what you talked about, right?
There were two. There was Life Map and Primerica.
Okay. Do you have a recollection of when the initial life insurance policy with Tammy Daybell was put into place?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Were you aware that that policy was placed, one of the $300,000 policy was put in place back in approximately 2002?
That wouldn't surprise me.
Okay, but you don't have a recollection of that,
Not off the top of my head right now.
and you don't remember that fact. Doesn't jar any memory of that fact, correct?
Not right now, no.
Okay. But it wouldn't surprise you that's the case, correct?
No, she did have life insurance, correct.
Prior to,
Prior to.
right. And then the amount of life insurance, other than the life insurance from back in 2002 that she had, what about the life map? What are we talking about there?
You're talking specifically to
Specifically,
the
yes.
increase on 9/8?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so initially she had a base because of the employment at the part-time employment, I guess, as a librarian, right?
Correct.
I think that's what it was. So when you start the employment, you get an initial base of about 50,000, right?
That's what it was in the beginning.
Okay, so the insurance was at 50,000, and then on 9/8 of 2019, Tammy increased that to what?
To 130.
Okay, so the increase went up 80,000.
Correct.
So initially, before Tammy started employment with the school, her insurance was 300,000,
There was 300,000 before, and then before she started school.
and that was from some time ago, correct?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Then she started at the school, and she had to have worked there for about a year before she was eligible to increase the insurance, correct?
I'm totally with you, Paige.
It was a year or two, yes.
A year or two.
Hey,
I don't
Burnt
know what it was
Popcorn,
per the rule,
haven't you heard?
but I
Lori's
know it's at
full-time
least
job
a
with
year,
Goddard.
maybe more.
You have to put a probationary period in. You don't automatically get that insurance, right?
Correct.
And that's a financial decision made by the school district, and I would anticipate, right?
That's, yeah, above me.
So then after a year, she can apply for an increase in that insurance from the total of 350 and add an additional $80,000 onto that. Right?
Yeah,
Okay. And they elected to do that, correct?
they did.
Okay. And we don't know who elected to increase that insurance, correct? You weren't part of the family at that point.
I wasn't there.
Okay. And what I find interesting is that typically the school year would start the beginning of September for most school districts.
Most.
Yeah. And that's usually the time when the school districts say, this is your opportunity to elect whether you want to increase your insurance or not increase your insurance, correct?
Yes.
So it's not inconsistent that during the school year, just before the start of the school year, as a librarian or a teacher in that school district, the insurance is elected to go up after she served her 1-year probationary period, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. $776 and $774. You talked about Spring Creek and the $10,000 investment.
Mhm.
And that was money that was put in to Spring Creek. And you know what Spring Creek is, right?
Chad's book company, yes.
And it wasn't just Chad's book company, was it? It was also Tammy's.
It would have been Tammy's too.
It was both of theirs. So we could say that it was Tammy's book company, right?
Yes.
Or we could say it was Chad's book company, right?
Chad and Tammy.
Or what we should say is that it's Tammy and Chad's book company, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then addition, there was some money that was $8,000 payments to each of the children, correct?
The 3 older children, yes.
Right. And then a short time after that, there was two vehicles, a minivan and then a black Dodge Dakota that Chad gave to each of the daughters as well, correct?
That actually took place prior. So the transfers took place on 6/9.
You're right.
The vehicles were given to the daughters on 3/8.
Right. And subsequent to that, the vehicles were given to the daughters. So now you were aware that, well, we'll move on from that. Lastly, what I want to talk to you about is the malachite rings. Okay. You made a comment that they were returned. I mean, it was canceled.
Though that transaction, that one specifically was canceled, yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, did you look into the size of the wedding rings in that it showed it up on the screen, the size of the wedding rings?
Well, it said 8 millimeters, but that's the width, not the size.
Okay. Okay. And thank you for clarifying that, because that was one of my questions. Thank you. Were you aware that shortly after August 15th of 2009, Alex Cox had been proposing marriage to Zuluma Pastenes?
I don't know the date of that.
It's facts, not in the record.
I didn't ask him whether it was facts. I asked him whether he's aware, Judge.
Overruled.
Okay. Were you aware that shortly after that time, Alex Cox had proposed marriage to Zuluma Pastenes?
I know Alex and Zulema got married. I don't know when the proposal took place.
Okay. And then were you aware that also at the
Hut
same
in
time, Melanie
Denver
Boudreaux was
shoot
contemplating the
my
same
podcast
thing, a
husband.
marriage, shortly after?
What are you talking about?
I hit a Chiba Hut. They make sandwiches, but like all the sandwiches are like have weed related names.
Ooh, I gotta check that
Chiba
out.
Hut's fire, dude. We'll definitely
Nice.
hit that up in Denver.
Awesome.
After that time as well. Were you aware of that?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Well,
But you are aware that there's no indication through emails, text message, or otherwise that Chad Daybell was intending to marry Lori Vallow at that point. Is that right?
In August, the wedding, no. There was nothing to implicate a wedding in August that I knew of.
Or even a proposal for marriage at that point, correct?
Not that I can verify.
Yeah. Judge, that's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right. All right.
Mr. Wood, redirect.
please, next witness, be good. Please, next witness, be good. All right, let's redirect.
Mr. Douglas, we were just talking about rings. Have you ever seen pictures of Chad and Lori's wedding?
I have.
What kind of rings are they wearing?
They're malachite rings.
Defense counsel asked you about why you put on the search for the south-southwest wind.
Mhm.
Earlier, you testified that as a forensic accountant, you look into factors outside just of the finances in a case. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you came onto this case, it was a missing children case. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so, and defense counsel asked you about a text message Chad sent about burning limbs.
Correct.
And do you know what date that message was sent?
I believe that took place the day after on 9/9.
Right. And what was, pursuant to your investigation, what was the last known sighting of Tylee Ryan?
The last known sighting is 9/8.
Yeah. Defense counsel asked you about the text message between Lori and Chad about the $4,000.
Look at that fancy one, Bob. I could
Dude,
even
that
do
is so cool.
I could do it with a logo. I gotta work on this for our special.
That is so cool, dude.
And Social Security.
Correct.
So Mr. Daybell was aware that Lori was receiving at least $4,000 at that point in Social
At least
Security.
4,000.
Right. You testified that there's no joint account of Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow.
Correct.
Did they live together at any point?
Yes.
Was that in Hawaii?
In Hawaii, yes.
And just finally, defense counsel asked you about,
Oh boy.
I'm going to call them burner phones that Mr. Daybell purchased. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
And he asked you if that would be a good way to hide an affair.
That is correct.
Well, would that be a good way to hide a crime?
Yes, in my experience.
So in your experience as a forensic accountant, do you see people engaged in criminal activity purchasing burner phones often?
Yes.
And so if someone was having an affair and then the mistress's husband dies, and then your wife dies, and you marry that woman 10 days later, and then the next year 2 dead children are found on your property, are those the type of events that might lead someone to buy multiple burner phones?
It could.
No other questions, Your Honor.
What did he say?
What about the?
What was the very last? I didn't hear the last thing he said.
Sorry, I sped it up.
I just want to hear the very last thing he said.
And then the mistress's husband dies, and then your wife dies, and you marry that woman 10 days later. And then the next year, 2 dead children are found on your property. Are those the type of events that might lead someone to buy multiple burner phones?
It could.
I
No
love
other
that.
questions, Your Honor.
It's good.
All right.
That's how you end a redirect.
Go ahead. You can recross on that limited scope, Mr. Pryor.
Right.
At the podium, please.
Let's speed up this dope. I want to see who the next witness is.
Who's this guy?
Who's what guy?
And actually, 2 questions. The financial transactions and
fires.
issues related to finances with Tylee, Ryan, and JJ started about or around when?
The financial transactions that I was tracking with Tylee, we got data into 2018, but my charts are indicative of January of 2019.
Okay. And then the marriage and the time they lived together in Hawaii, Chad and Lori, started when?
So they got married November 5th of 2019.
Okay. And they lived in Hawaii together until when?
Until she was arrested, I believe,
In January.
in January.
So 2 months.
2 months.
And the financial transactions prior to that went back at least a year, year and a half.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
Oh,
All right, that'll conclude the testimony.
All right,
then of
let's see
Mr.
who it
Douglas.
is.
This will be recalled by either side.
Melanie Gibb. Here, let's all try to. Everyone hope for Melanie.
Your Honor,
Gibb.
at this point, he can be released from the state subpoena.
Melanie.
Okay, that'll conclude your testimony then, Mr. Douglas. Thank you for appearing. You can go ahead and step down, and if there are any exhibits on the bench, I'll have the bailiff grab those. The state ready to call its next witness.
Yes, Your Honor.
Who will that be?
The state will call Melanie Gibb.
Oh!
Oh!
Come on down, Melanie. You're our next contestant.
This is awesome. All right, this thing just picked up. Bro. Woo! All right, here we go.
The testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing.
She's so far away, Jay. She's so far away.
All right, before we commence with testimony, Ms. Gibb, please make sure to answer all of the questions verbally so we make a good record. Try to avoid talking at the same time as any attorney questioning you. And I am going to inquire now that you're under oath. Have you reviewed or watched any of this trial since it started on the court's live stream?
No.
Have you talked to anyone else about testimony they gave in this trial so far? All right, with that in mind, then, Ms. Blake, if you'd like to inquire on direct, you may.
Thank you. Would you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Melanie Gibb, Melanie Gibb.
Miss Gibb, do you know an individual named Chad Daybell?
I do.
Do you recall approximately when you met him?
I believe it was the summer of 2017.
Do you recall where you met him?
I met him at a
a get together that was like a camping environment.
Did you talk to him at that event?
I did.
Did you stay in close contact with him after that?
No.
Do you recall meeting an individual named Lori Vallow?
Yes.
How did you meet her?
I met her in a church building where I was given a class and she was in the audience.
Do you recall approximately when that would have been?
I believe October 2018.
And do you recall when you met her, who approached whom?
She approached me.
When you first met her, did you end up striking up a friendship?
Yes.
And did you stay in pretty consistent contact with her, at least initially after meeting her?
Yes.
Do you recall going to an event with Miss Vallow towards the end of October of 2018?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was?
It was in October. I would say about a few weeks after I met Lori. And yes, we went to St. George, Utah.
Do you recall why you went to St. George, Utah?
We went for a conference.
Did anyone else travel with you and Lori to that conference?
Yes.
And do you recall who?
I can't remember their names. I think there was 6 of us, 5 or 6 of us.
Did you all travel together in the same vehicle?
Yes.
When you got there to the conference, do you recall if Mr. Daybell was there?
Yes.
What was he doing there, if you know?
He was selling his books and giving a talk.
Did you approach him at any point?
Yeah, we talked.
Were you present when, or let me back up. Did you observe Mr. Daybell and Miss Vallow together?
Yes.
Do you know if that was the first time they had met?
Yes, it was.
Were you part of introducing them?
I was, we walked into the building together and I can't remember if I introduced her or if she introduced herself. I can't recall.
And when you say we walked into the building, is that referring to you and Lori?
Me and Lori and several other women.
And Mr. Daybell or Chad Daybell was already present?
Correct.
Throughout the conference, did you see Mr. Daybell again?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to observe Lori and Chad together?
I did.
What observations, if any, did you make?
They communicated a lot and they were very interested in communicating about the things that they were learning and talking about, seemed to be friendly.
And when you say they were communicating a lot, did you see them engaged in conversation together?
I did.
Did it appear to be deep conversation?
Yes.
Did they appear to be focused on each other?
Yes.
Was there anything else about it that caught your attention?
They seemed to be attracted to each other. That caught my attention.
And at the time that you're there in October, do you know if Lori Vallow was married?
Yes, she was.
Had you ever met her husband at that point?
I had.
And who was her husband?
Charles Vallow.
Do you know if Chad Daybell was married at that point?
Yes, I do, and he was.
And do you know who his wife was?
Tammy Daybell.
Had you ever met Tammy?
No.
After that conference, did you travel back to Arizona with Lori?
I did.
For those who are just, I saw someone asking a little brief up. For those who want to know Melanie, this is where it all started. What she's describing right now is where they met, and this all began, folks.
Do you recall sometime after the conference talking to her about what she and Chad discussed?
Yes.
What were some of the things she shared with you?
He shared with her, according to what she shared with me, that...
Your Honor, if I may respond.
Grounds to the objection? Ms. Blake, you may respond.
Your Honor, it's a statement of a party opponent as well as a charged co-conspirator.
All right, the court does find that's an exception to the hearsay rule that applies here, so the witness can answer the question. Objections overruled.
And do you recall the question?
Yes. She said that they talked about multiple lives and I believe she talked about, how many lives that she had lived on this earth, and that she indeed was married to someone named Moroni in a previous life. Those kind of conversations. Yeah.
And prior to meeting Chad Daybell, did Lori ever talk about multiple probations before that or multiple lives?
She did.
So she had some interest in that subject matter already.
Yes.
But when you talked to her about her conversation with Chad at that conference, she told you Chad gave her some additional information?
That's right.
Did she say anything regarding what Chad had told her about she and Chad?
That they had been married in previous probations.
Did Lori seem receptive of that information?
She did.
And we talked about you'd met Charles before, correct?
That's right.
Had you ever met Lori's children?
Yes,
And did you ever meet Tylee Ryan?
I did.
Did you ever meet JJ Vallow?
Good call, Paige. Chad has closed his monitor, his laptop, and he definitely is moving around and seems much more attentive than so far. Good call, Paige.
I did.
Do you recall where you met them?
In Lori's house.
Did you have an opportunity to observe Lori with her children?
I did.
What observations, if any, did you make about her and Tylee?
They had a difficult relationship. They didn't necessarily get along very well.
And what about Lori and JJ?
I could tell she had a lot of affection for him, but he was autistic and he seemed to be very busy for her.
We talked a little bit about, you met Lori in October of 2018, and initially, how often did you two have contact?
In the beginning, it was almost daily, with the exception probably of a day or two a week, and that was probably for maybe about a month or two.
Do you recall approximately when the contact wasn't as frequent or what was going on at that time?
Yes, it was after January when she started to move around. She moved multiple times, so I couldn't keep in contact with her.
And that would be January of 2019?
Correct.
And to be clear, she wasn't moving around to avoid contact with you?
Right.
But just as she moved around,
Right.
you'd lose track of her?
Well, we wouldn't see each other, yeah.
Did you still talk to her on the phone?
Yes.
And after that first conference in October, do you recall the next time that you saw Chad Daybell?
The next month, November 2018, he came down for a conference in Arizona.
When he came down to Arizona, did his wife come with him?
No,
And at that conference in October, did you ever see his wife Tammy there?
no,
When he came down, so he came down to a conference in November in Arizona.
that's right.
Was Lori present for that conference?
Yes.
Outside of the conference, did you see him at any other gathering?
Yes, at her house.
And when you say her house, is that Lori?
That's right.
Was her house in Arizona at the time?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about the gathering?
So the one at her house was a small group of people met before the conference. And so there was, I don't know, maybe 20 people there. And so Lori and her friends were there.
Did you have an opportunity to observe Lori and Chad together at that meeting or the gathering at her house?
Yes.
What observations did you make?
They talked often with each other. They seemed to be very interested in each other.
Did Lori at any time tell you anything about she and Chad when he was down there in Arizona?
Yes, she told me that they had been married before in previous probations.
Is that when she first shared that information with you?
I believe she shared it with me in St. George. So it's between St. George and November, she shared it.
Did she talk about going to the temple with Chad?
She did.
What did she tell you about that?
She told me that they were going to be resealed again like they had been in previous lives together.
And did she tell you that they in fact had gone to the temple?
Yes,
And that was in November, about a month after meeting each other.
that's right.
And she told you the purpose of that was so they could be sealed together again.
That's right.
At that time, was Charles still alive?
Yes,
And was Tammy still alive?
yes.
Was Charles present at the gathering at her house?
No,
Do you know where he was, or did you learn where he was?
he was out of town.
Do you know what Chad did for a living?
He was a sexton and he wrote books.
With regard to his books, had you ever read any of his books?
Yes,
Do you know if Lori had read any of his books?
yes,
Did she seem interested in his books?
yes.
When Chad was there in November, do you know where he stayed?
He stayed at Lori's house.
And Charles was not there.
Correct.
Did anyone else stay at her house, if you know?
Yes, there were multiple people there.
Were there any other men there?
I don't know if her brother was there, but nobody else that I know of.
And when you say her brother, do you know which brother you're referring to?
Alex.
Did you ever meet any of Lori's other brothers or her other brother?
I don't think so.
Did Lori ever talk to you about her conversations with Chad?
Yes,
Do you know, did Lori ever share with you if she turned to Chad for advice?
she did.
And we talked a little bit about the multiple lives or multiple probations already, correct?
Yes,
At some point, did Chad or Lori share more information about that with you?
yes.
And which one of them?
They both did.
Do you know which one of them seemed to have the most understanding regarding multiple probations?
Yes, Lori would often call Chad and Chad would give her the information and then she would come back and share it with me and her other friends.
And when she would share the information, would she tell you she got that from Chad?
Yeah,
At some point, did Chad or Lori talk to you about the concept of light and dark?
yes.
Do you recall who talked to you about that?
Lori shared it with me.
Did she tell you where she got that information from?
She got it from Chad.
What did she share with you about
Yes, Susan, that is still the plan.
the concept of light and dark?
So if someone was light, they had made contracts with Jesus Christ before they came here. And if they were dark, they had made contracts and promises with Satan. And it was a different scale level of how dark or light they were.
So it was a decision before they came here to Earth.
Yes,
Contract.
initially, yes.
And then with regard to the multiple probations, as you learned more about that, what did Lori share with you regarding multiple probations?
That people lived multiple times. And then she would find out, she would try to find out like when that was.
And was there some kind of a rating system or a system to easily identify if someone was light or dark or what level they were?
She would ask him and he would somehow find out, and he would find out, how many times they've been on this planet or any other planets, I guess. And he would just find that out by asking questions the way he did. And then she would share it with us.
And the he you're referring to, is that Chad?
Yes.
At some point, were people designated with a number and then either an L or a D?
Correct.
Where would those designations originate?
From Chad.
And if someone was designated a D, did that stand for dark?
Correct.
And the L was for light?
Correct.
At some point, did Lori also share with you that she believed she had a mission here on Earth?
Yes.
What did she share with you she believed her mission to be?
She felt that it was her mission to gather women to the 144,000, and that she would be the leader of it. At some point, she thought she was going to lead that.
And when we talk about the 144,000, what's that in reference to? Could you explain a little bit?
Yes, it's a biblical explanation for a certain amount of people that would go out and gather Israel in the last days and have the power and authority to do that.
So gathering people in the end times.
Correct.
Do you know where Lori got the idea or the belief that she was meant to be one of the leaders or help gather?
I think she got it from herself.
Do you know if did she ever tell you if she talked to Chad about that?
She did.
What did she tell you in relation to that, if you recall?
Well, she shared with him what she believed she was, which was the gatherer of that. And then he agreed that she was. And so he, told her that that's what her mission was.
Do you know if Lori was telling other people about light and dark and multiple probations as well?
She was.
Do you know some of the other individuals she shared that with?
Yes. Sulema, Serena, Nicole, and Christina, and Melanie, and just maybe a few other people that are not as significant.
Did she also share these ideas with Alex?
Yes.
Do you know if Chad ever shared these ideas with any of those individuals? If I may respond.
Okay, and I'll note on the record, it didn't pick up on the microphone. It's an objection based on lack of foundation. Ms. Blake, response.
Your Honor, I specifically ask if she knows. I'm asking her personal knowledge.
All right, well, she can answer the question if she knows, but not necessarily go into what she knows, because I do think there's no foundation at this point for what.
Do you know if Chad ever shared those teachings or beliefs with any of those individuals?
Yes.
And did he?
Yes.
Were you present?
Yes.
And again, when Lori would tell you these things, she would explain she received the information from Chad.
Yes.
And we talked about that gathering in November at Lori's house. Were some of these things talked about then?
Yes.
Was Chad present?
Yes.
Was Lori present?
Yes.
Were they both talking about these ideas?
Yes.
Had you heard of these concepts before?
Yes.
Had you heard of them in the way that Chad was teaching them?
No.
At the time, were you open to learning more about these things?
Yes.
Did Lori or Chad ever talk to you about if a person could switch from being light to dark or vice versa?
Yes.
What did they tell you regarding that?
That they might be light, for example, and then some maybe evil entity could enter them and then they would become dark.
So a light person could become dark.
That's right.
When they, and I say they, do you recall if it was Lori or Chad that would tell you these things?
She would tell me.
And would she tell you where she received the information?
Yes, she went to Chad with it.
Thank you. Do you recall when Lori first started talking to you about people becoming dark?
I would say sometime between January and February of 2019.
Do you recall the first person she talked to you about becoming dark, the first specific person?
Yes, it was Charles Ballow.
Did she tell you where she received that information?
Yes, she received it from Chad.
At some point, did she talk to you more about what it meant if the evil spirit came in, like where the actual person went?
So when a dark spirit would take over, the original spirit of the person would go into the spirit world.
And that's what she originally told you?
That's right.
And did she tell you she received that information from Chad?
Yes.
So was your understanding the body of that person was still alive?
Correct.
It just had a different dark spirit in it now?
Correct.
What did Lori originally talk to you about? Was there a way to do something to help that person?
She would try to do like a casting out of an evil spirit, and try to convince the spirit to the evil spirit to leave.
Do you know where she got the concept of casting from?
I believe she got it from energy work.
At some point, did you learn if Charles had been designated a different name?
Yes.
What was that name?
Ned Snyder.
Do you know where that name came from?
Chad told that to Lori.
At some point, had Lori talked to you about her having a dream regarding Charles?
Yes.
What had she told you?
She said that when it was after Christmas and he was out of town, I believe he went to Texas, and he took JJ. And she had a dream during that time that they were not going to come back, that they were going to get in a car accident. And that's what she saw.
And that they would be Charles and JJ?
Correct.
Did she believe Charles was going to be killed in that accident?
She did.
Was Charles killed in a car accident?
No.
Was it sometime after that that he was labeled dark?
Yes.
Judge, how about some foundation?
Your Honor, it's a question to her personal knowledge. I guess I can rephrase.
Go ahead, Ms. Blake. Thank you.
At some point, did you learn or did Lori tell you if he was labeled dark once he did not pass away in that accident?
Yes.
And again, Judge, if I could have some time, date, place.
You'd like to lay additional foundation, you may, Ms. Blake?
Do you recall approximately when Lori told you or when you learned Charles was not killed in an accident?
January 2019.
And do you recall approximately, I think you've already said, but do you recall approximately when you were told Charles was dark?
It was, I would say, weeks after that.
And that designation came from Chad?
Correct.
And then we started talking a little bit about the idea of casting.
Right.
Did you ever participate in any castings?
I did.
Can you tell me a little bit about what would happen at the casting?
So Lori and a few of her friends would stand in a circle and then feel like they had the power and authority to cast out the evil spirit by trying to use words, I guess, like an energy work to be able to convince them to leave and hoping that the evil spirit would leave.
So would some of the individuals say a prayer?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Would some of the individuals talk about sending spiritual weapons or something of that nature?
Yes.
Was the person that the casting was being done on physically present?
No.
Was anyone physically touching, doing anything to, in this case, Charles?
No.
Do you recall, did you participate in the castings for Charles?
Yes.
At any point, did Lori tell you whether or not the casting was successful?
Yes.
And what did she share with you?
She would say that Ned had left, and then shortly after, she would say somebody else got in, another entity.
Do you know who told her that information or where she got it from?
Yes, she got it from Chad.
And did she tell you that?
Yes.
At some point, did you learn what would happen to the body if the casting was actually successful?
She would say that the body was supposed to die if the evil spirit left.
So in Charles' case, Ned's out and a new spirit's in.
Correct.
Do you know if there were additional castings?
Yes.
In relation to Charles, I should say.
Yes.
Did you participate in any additional castings?
Yes.
Do you know if at any point the next entity or spirit was cast out of Charles, according to Lori?
Yes.
And was it?
According to her, it was.
And did she tell you where she received that information?
From Chad.
And then what happened in relation to Charles when that next entity was removed, according to Lori?
Nothing happened to Charles.
Did a new entity come in?
According to her.
And did she tell you where she learned that from?
Yes, Chad.
No. It wasn't Ned from Green Acres. It was this Ned.
Hi-ho, neighborinos.
That's what they heard. Chad heard that. He heard this, and he's like, "Oh shit, Charles is Ned."
Hi-ho, neighborinos.
Was Chad ever present for any of the castings?
Yes.
Were there castings done on other individuals besides Charles that you know of?
Yes.
And who were some of those individuals?
Brandon Boudreaux was one that I know of.
And did you participate in a casting on Brandon Boudreaux?
I don't know if I said anything. I was there when they did it.
Do you know if Chad was present at that one?
Yes, he was.
And who was Brandon Boudreaux?
He was Lori's niece's, which her name is Melanie's husband.
Had you met Brandon?
Yes.
At any point, did you learn if Brandon had been designated as dark?
Yes.
And had he?
According to her.
Did she tell you where she received that information?
Yes, from Chad.
Do you know if any castings were ever done on Tammy Daybell?
Yes.
Were you present for them that you recall?
I don't recall.
Do you know if castings were done on Tylee or JJ?
Not that I know of.
You were not involved in any if they were?
I don't recall any of that.
And the castings in relation to Charles, do you recall approximately what period of time those were occurring?
So sometime between January and February 2019 up until I don't know, probably before he died.
And was your understanding that if the casting was successful, the body would naturally expire?
Yes.
Were you ever told that there would be violence done to the body?
Never.
Were there other individuals that were involved in the castings besides you?
Yes.
Did some of them seem to have more involvement?
Yes.
You liar!
And do you recall who seemed to be more involved in the castings?
Lori and Sulema seem to know the most about it.
And the casting that we talked about Chad being present for, do you recall where that would have occurred?
Yes,
Where was that?
that was in Arizona.
Yeah, she's massively lying. Pause it for 1 sec, Jay. So during Lori's trial, we kept trying to figure out because Zulema definitely had gotten a use immunity deal from the state, and use immunity is basically where you can testify to certain things and they can't use the testimony, or the state agrees not to use the testimony that you state on the stand against you in charging you. That doesn't mean if they've compiled other evidence outside of your testimony that they can't come after you. I'm curious as to whether or not, and we never really knew in Lori's trial whether or not Melanie Gibbs got a use immunity deal. I'm curious here, and she has really toned it down. Like in Lori's trial, we're seeing it in the chat. She's really making it sound like, oh, it was them. Yeah, I was there, but it was them. I didn't like. She's really kind of extricated herself out of it a lot more than she did when she was testifying in Lori's trial. It's interesting. And just so you guys know, that motion that we heard yesterday is going to be relating to the cross-examination that Pryor will be doing. So like that whole little motion that we heard about whether or not they were going to end up calling Wood, who's the prosecutor, or if they would need to. And Pryor's like, well, I certainly don't want to have to call Wood, but it's going to get into the communications between Wood and Melanie, because he's going to delve into, was Melanie given some kind of deal to come here and testify? Because clearly, like, she's coming off like she does not, like she wasn't privy to all this stuff, and her and Zulema were Lori's ride or dies. Like Melanie was her best friend, until she wasn't. So it's interesting. You can see Pryor's like feverishly writing shit down. And it's interesting that he's not making, because we've heard him do it, he makes those foundation arguments or objections all the time, like with the other witnesses. He's not doing it here. Like when she's asking Melanie, and did she hear it from Chad? Like there, he could be making the foundational, objection foundation, where then, the prosecutor would then have to ask her, okay, well, how do you know that she was hearing it from Chad? Was it just Lori saying it was? And he's not doing that because he's going to be really hitting hard into this shit on cross-examination. That's why he's not making those objections now. At least that's what I think.
And yes, Charlotte, you're absolutely correct. For those folks that follow the Adelsons, Wendy Adelson had use immunity, which, like Bob said, they can't use what she says, but Wendy has a police interview. That's why I keep going over it. They can use that against her. They can't use her like if they're, like Bob said, if there's other evidence, but they can't use what they're testifying to against them. So good call, Charlotte. Yes, if you guys follow, that's the exact same. And Wendy had derivative too. But so yeah, all right, let's keep going here. And by the way, folks have noticed, and I've said in the chat, Pryor's cross is going to be something, folks. So get ready for that.
It's gonna be
Are you aware when Charles Vallow was killed?
Yes,
Do you recall approximately when that was?
July 11th, 2019.
So this would have been subsequent to the castings taking place?
Yes, right, just shortly after.
At some point, did you start to believe that Charles may be possessed?
To some level, yes.
And how many times had you met Charles?
Just a handful times.
Would you say you knew him very well?
No, I didn't know him very well.
Is it fair to say most of the information you had about Charles came from Lori?
Yes.
Do you recall sometime in July staying at Lori's residence?
I do.
And do you recall her asking you to leave at some point?
Yes.
Why did she tell you you needed to leave?
So I woke up early in the morning and she told me I needed to leave because Charles was going to be coming down. He's driving in from Texas, and that he was going to kill her.
Did she tell you anything that she was going to do, any precautionary steps she was going to take?
I believe she said that Alex was going to be there to help protect her.
Did you have an opportunity to observe Alex and Lori together?
Yes,
How would you describe their relationship or your observations?
close brother and sister relationship.
Anything about it seems strange to you?
No, it seemed normal to me.
Just close.
Yeah, really close.
And you talked about her saying Alex was going to come to protect her.
Yeah.
At any point, did you learn if someone had designated Alex as Lori's protector?
Yes.
What did you learn about that?
So as Chad would share with Lori that his mission in life, according to what he learned, was to protect Lori. That was why he came here.
So Chad had designated Alex as Lori's protector.
That's right.
And Lori was going to have Alex stay to protect her from Charles.
I believe so.
Did you ever hear Charles threaten her?
No.
Were you present when Charles was killed?
No.
At some point later, did you talk to Lori about that?
Yes.
What did she share with you about the killing of Charles?
She told me that he came in from Texas and that they were arguing, and she said he put his cell phone in the car and she grabbed it, ran in the house. He was really upset with her. They were standing around the kitchen. He was threatening her. Tylee had a bat and she was trying to protect her mom or herself, I'm not sure. And then Charles and Alex got in a physical fight, and then Alex went to the bedroom to get his gun to defend himself.
And was it your understanding, or were you told that Alex then shot and killed Charles?
That's what that's what she told me.
And did you also talk to Alex about what had happened?
Yes.
And do you recall what he shared with you?
I believe he shared the same story. I don't remember all the detail to it, but it was the same story.
Do you recall how close in time it was after Charles' death that you talked to Lori and or Alex?
It felt like about 4 days afterwards.
When you talked to Lori and Alex, were they together?
Well, at first I talked to her on the telephone, so I don't know if he was there or not.
And then later when you talked to Alex, was Lori present?
I don't know if it was the first time I saw her or not. It could have been. It could have been the next time. I'm not really sure.
But at some point around 4 days later, you talked to both Lori and Alex.
Well, for sure her, but I can't remember when I talked to him. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
When you talked to Lori, it's just 4 days later, any sign of sadness?
No.
Any sign of grief?
No.
How did she seem?
Happy.
When you talked to Alex, any sign of remorse?
A little thoughtful, a little unsure of himself.
At some point after Charles is shot and killed, did you see Chad Daybell again?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately how long after?
So it must have been a couple of weeks after Charles's death. He was in Arizona at Lori's house.
So just a couple weeks after Charles' death, Chad Daybell's down in that house.
Correct.
Do you know at that time if Tammy Daybell was still alive?
She was.
Do you know where Chad stayed when he was back down in Arizona?
I believe it was Lori's house.
Did you have an opportunity to observe he and Lori together?
Yes.
What observations did you make?
They seemed super excited to be together. They were standing, talking to several of us at the kitchen table, and they're standing side by side and, excited to share, their future plans together.
Any sign of grief from Chad?
No.
And you talked about they were excited to share their future plans together.
Yeah.
So Chad and Lori were planning a future together?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And Tammy was still alive?
Yes.
And Judge, I'm just looking at the time here. It's almost 10. I don't know if the court wants to take a break at this point.
I was
Or keep going.
thinking anytime between now and 10:15 or whenever you feel like is a logical break point is fine.
I think this may be a logical break point.
Okay, let's go ahead and take our mid-morning recess then. And it's right about 10, so we will resume right back about 10:30 with further testimony.
All rise, please.
All right. Well, we are so
Interesting, man. Interesting. So this, like, she's such a great witness in terms of giving everybody background, like she's the one who's going to be putting kind of the puzzle together for the jury in terms of her relationship with Lori, Zulema's relationship, kind of the formation of this little cult that they're getting started. Like Melanie and Zulema are like the first two homies that, become her ride or dies as she's forming this thing. Like Melanie's with her, when they go to this event, and when she first meets Chad, like the state's really kind of soft playing just how friendly her and Melanie and Lori really were. I mean, when she has all this inside knowledge, about Lori, like it's not coming, like the way that she's portraying her relationship with Lori is not coinciding with her having all that inside dope. So like the cross is going to be heavy duty, like I'm really curious. I was asking Lori Hellis if she knew whether or not Melanie had a use immunity deal. And she said she didn't know, but this goes into play with that, all these text messages between the prosecutor Wood and Melanie, like where they're talking about these hundreds of text messages. She's like, Wood and Gibbs are tight, so like all that stuff's going to come into all of it is going to come into play during the cross.
I got a couple breaking thing. Well, not really break. Well, first of all, Steve is going to join us, Bob. So 9:00 today.
Awesome.
Me, Bob, Steve, and Dan. We're going to give you a breakdown on Karen Reed. And as far as Karen Reed goes, the last post I see 15 minutes ago, jury selection is moving right along. More than half of the 52 person day 3 poll has had their time at sidebar with the judge and lawyers. Some spoke for a few minutes. Some are dismissed almost immediately. And then also, thank you, Amber, for tagging us in this. The prosecutors just turned over evidence to the defense team. The paperwork shows state police reports and a 3-page DNA analysis from a Virginia-based company has just been turned over today. Now, we also have breaking news, Bob, on which Dizzy just sent to me on this case, which I'm going to share right now. Looks like Dizzy just sent this to me. There is a notice order to show cause hearing on April 18th. The court has scheduled an order to show cause in this case. The notice is intended to inform the parties that the court required an explanation of attempted filing from Terry Ratliff on March 29 and whether it complies with the Idaho Criminal Rule 47. And Dizzy sent me, Dizzy, if you could send me the second page. She sent me 2 pages. One is really blurry, one I can see. So if you could send me the second page, I'll see if I can share the other page that she sent me. Yeah, so unfortunately, I got this page, but the other page didn't come through. So yeah, I guess there's going to be a
So this is the thing we were talking about with this Terry Ratliff guy who we were talking about it in the chat a little bit the other day. We knew this thing was going down. Can we see from that motion whether or not Diz didn't send it to me, so I can't pull it up on my phone. Dizzy, can you
Oh,
text
she just maybe let me see if this one works. She just sent me another one.
or blow it up because I can't read it? Oh, here we go.
Oh, good. All right, I got it, so I can pull it up here. Here's page 2. Thank you, Dizzy. As always, and make sure you guys are subscribed, or if you connect to Dizzy and Tracy's Discord for all this information. So let me see. Is this the one? All right.
So that's clearly going to be this afternoon.
Here it is. This is about as close as I can get. On February 6th, 2020.
The hearing committee of.
Oh, is this an old thing? Is this just about Ratliff? Is this not?
Oh yeah, that's when he was disciplined. So.
Oh, all right. I thought this was part of. I'm sorry. I thought this was part of the.
Yeah, Dizzy had sent me this morning. I reviewed it. Basically, this guy, this Ratliff guy, who we have no idea what
how
his involvement in this case is. Like, I don't know, because like typically, if he were entering his appearance to come in and help prior, he wouldn't be filing a motion to intervene. So I don't. It's a mystery, and Lori Hellis doesn't have any idea what it's about either. Like whatever this thing is like kind of really been in the shadows. I'm curious.
Do you think the hearing will be like streamed?
I don't know.
Interesting.
Like, I really don't. Like I haven't seen anything regarding sealing it. You know what I mean? Like typically if they're going to seal it, we'd see something like we did yesterday where the state had tried to seal, that hearing regarding whether or not Wood would have to testify or whether he'd be called to testify. So I don't know, man. Like I haven't seen anything with it. I just can't figure out what the play is here. Like who this dude is. I mean, he is a death penalty certified lawyer in Idaho. But like I said, like if he were just entering his appearance, it wouldn't be a motion to intervene. So and what I've heard is that it's a motion to intervene and to stop the trial. So I don't know.
Man, I hope that'll be real interesting. So basically, if they like that guy's Terry Ratliff's going to be there today, right? Like he's going to be there and like
he's got to be. So because I don't know if the court brought this motion, like what they call sua sponte, on its own motion, or if one of the parties filed it. I don't know if the state or prior filed it or the court brought it on its own motion. I don't know, man.
I assume maybe like when they go to lunch at some point he's going to talk about scheduling. Because that's what he normally does. So maybe he'll be like, "Listen, this is what we're doing." But that should be interesting. But yeah, folks, if you're coming in late, Karen Reed might be done. It sounds like Karen Reed's jury selection might be done today. Tonight, me, Bob, Publicly Buzzed, we're going to give you a breakdown if you're not familiar with all of the case, some graphics, kind of give you a idea of what's going on, and then we'll see. I think you're right. I think you said this, Bob. I doubt they'll say start tomorrow. If anything, they'd probably start on Monday. But either way,
makes the most sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, you would want. I mean, both. I think both attorneys would be like, "Give me the weekend and just like let's get this ready. Let's get our So either way,
says the court filed it, the motion for the rule. Like it's interesting in Illinois, at least. We have what's called a rule to show cause. And when that's filed, it's always relating to whether or not somebody should be held in contempt of court. So I don't know. I'm assuming that it has the same meaning in Idaho, but I can't say that definitively. So wait, Dizzy said, no, Legal Mama, it's sealed, but everything that's unsealed is in there. So I don't know. Is that motion in your Discord? I want to read it later when I have time. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a mystery. I really don't know what it is. But I'm super curious to find out. The question is, the judge is going to hear that right after lunch. Does he anticipate it's going to be a long hearing? Is it going to be streamed? I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, and if you're coming in late, they just took a break. Melanie Gibb is on the stand. If you're coming in late, about 8 minutes, they should be back. Do you think she's going to take the rest of the? I mean, this is a pretty lengthy witness, right? We'll be
guaranteed. Like I can tell the state's trying to streamline her testimony. I mean, she was on for days in Lori's trial. Like her and Zulema were like, I think like a day and a half, maybe 2 days apiece, if I remember correctly. So yeah, they're lengthy. Like they're the ones who are the state is going to use to make what's up, Kaylin? To make the connection, to really be able to show that Chad knew exactly what was going on and that he had a hand in it. Like these are key witnesses, because if not Melanie Gibb and Zulema, who else? You know what I mean? Then you're relying strictly on email, text messages, so in terms of firsthand accounts of being in the same room with Lori and Chad, Melanie's a huge witness for him. Like, and I agree with everybody in the chat. I'm not sure why Melanie's trying to downplay how tight her and Lori were. Like, if I'm the state, I'm like, you need to cut that shit out. Like, we're not coming after you on this thing. Like, you need to say what it was. Like, you got hoodwinked. I'm sorry. It makes you look like a jackass on the stand that you got sucked into all this shit. But, I mean, it is what it is. And we need you to just be completely frank and honest about what's going on and what was happening. So, the problem is when you have a witness on the stand, you cannot, like the state can't go, but like Wood can't go up to her and like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, what is this downplaying this shit? Like he can't communicate with her. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, what are you guys getting? Like, I see a lot of people like Lori or, Melanie's liar,
A lot of that.
because it's like, and that's if she was being more forthright about her involvement, like we wouldn't be seeing that in the chat. So it's like, and again, our chat is the jury. We have to assume that the folks in the jury are probably thinking the same thing. Now, again, we have, at least in theory, more knowledge than the jury, or at least you're hoping. If you're the lawyers on the case, you're hoping, or at least if you're defense counsel, you're hoping that the jury is just clueless as to all of the backstory. We happen to know a lot more, so we know she's full of shit. That doesn't necessarily mean that the jury does, but
Right.
it's such a big case. It's hard to know, like, who knows what.
Jan, thank you so much she said thank you, and Bob, thank you, Jan, just gifted out 5 memberships. Thank you so much. And
Awesome.
By the way, regarding the chat, just a reminder, folks, when we start Karen Reed, you're all going to be able to be together. So like, you don't have to like worry about like, because we're going to do like on and off days. So make sure if you're subscribed to one of us, subscribe to the other one, because we're going to do it from each channel and switch days. This way you can all chat together and you don't have to like, it's kind of difficult to see on the screen and we only have it on when we're talking. So just make sure.
We think that's going to be awesome for you guys to be able to hang together. So we're looking forward to that. Did you see, Jay, did you put up the breaking news about did you mention the West Memphis 3 thing? Is that what got, like, you mentioned that?
No, I didn't mention it.
All right. So are you aware of the West Memphis 3 case?
I've heard of it, but I'm not. They were like, no, you tell me. I think I've heard of it, but I'm not positive.
So two young boys were killed, West Memphis, Arkansas, and this is spanning 20 years at this point. And at some point, there was a huge wrongful conviction movement as to all 3 of the kids, and Damian Eccles being kind of
that sounds familiar. Okay.
Yeah, it was like one of those cases where like rock stars were getting involved and like a bunch of famous people were like backing, like getting these kids out. Ultimately, all 3 kids were released from custody, even though they weren't exonerated per se. And kind of in furtherance of that, there has been new technology that's come about, and there was some DNA that was discovered on one of the victim's shoes, I believe, like on the shoelaces. And so they have been forever trying to, or at least for the past couple years, they've been trying to get the court to test this evidence, this DNA, because they're saying that the that the DNA potentially could point to who the actual culprit is. The issue is because they took an Alford plea and they're no longer incarcerated, and they were coming into court by way of a post-conviction relief act petition, which typically deals with people that are still in custody. These guys were all out. The judge didn't even get to the merits of that motion because the judge is like, you don't have jurisdiction with the court anymore. You're out. You all took Alford pleas, and this thing's done as far as I'm concerned. And like, my thing was like, but what about the victims' families? Like, if
Right.
I'm the victims' families, I want the truth. And if this can help get us to the truth,
Absolutely.
because it's like, look, I mean, is it possible that the DNA on the shoelace has nothing to do with the killer? Yeah, for sure. I mean, it could be his mom's from like tying his shoes in the morning. I mean, who knows? Anybody who picked up the shoes in the morning at the house, it doesn't necessarily mean that DNA is attached to the killer, but it's certainly it is certainly worth testing because we'll get to that bridge, or we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I mean, let's at least get to that bridge and have that DNA tested. So long story short, the Supreme Court of Arkansas has just ruled that DNA is going to get tested. So pretty big deal for people that follow that case.
That could take a while, right, to get it tested?
I mean, it depends. Like, I hope that they would send it over to Othram. I think Othram's the best lab in the country in terms of like they are cutting edge with their technology. So and their turnaround would be really quick. Like, that was the lab I went to go take the I got the tour because Crime
Right.
had like invited me to go out there. I was so blown away. And that lab takes a lot of shit because they're not, they're a for-profit corporation. And I'm like, so what? I'm like, the money that they make, they dump right back into R&D, in terms of trying to forward the technology and make it better and quicker and more reliable. I'm like, so I don't know, like that. That's always been a weird thing for me. Like, oh, they should all be 50C3s, not for profit. I'm like, how do you advance the technology if you don't have if you're relying on donations and things of that nature in order to get the DNA, the profiles put together? It's like, how are you able to afford new equipment? How, you know what I mean? It's like, to me,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So I don't know, but they
The
take
reason
a lot. They
The
take a
reason I
lot of
asked is
support.
I was thinking, remember at Vegas, they were testing DNA for Rex, and that was a while ago, and we still haven't heard about that. So I'm curious, like that's why I was wondering.
Yeah, like, well, that's because they're using state labs. Probably state labs can take forever. It's like, I don't know. I haven't seen the order. I don't know who the Supreme Court. I don't know if they've indicated who should test it, or if they're leaving it to the discretion of the defense, because it was definitely the defense's motion. So if it's the defense's motion, I would assume that they'll be able to select any lab that they want to. So yeah, it's interesting. Pretty big deal for that case, though.
So yeah. Anyway, again, tonight at 9, we're gonna give you the background. Me, Bob, Publicly Buzz. Actually, and if you're familiar with the Adelson case, I'm gonna be on 7:30 to 8:30. I'm gonna be on Judy, AA Legal Focus stream for like an hour. We're just gonna, because I believe today is the anniversary of the bump. If folks know what the bump is in the Adelson's trial, it's when they had an undercover FBI agent go up to Donna Adelson and pretend he's a Latin king member, because the whole for folks who don't know what the Adelson case, but it's a case where these Adelsons hired hitmen to kill Dan Markel. It took 9 years. It took a long time for them to figure out what was going on, and they did a what was called a bump, where they recorded this FBI agent who was pretending to be a Latin king go up to this woman Donna Adelson and like say I need to get, my guy needs to get paid, one of the hitmen. And sure enough, what does Donna Adelson do? She calls her son Charlie Adelson, who was the person that set up the hit, And basically the FBI gets exactly what it wants. It shows the people that are involved. So Donna gets the letter instead of just calling the police and is like, oh my God, someone just came up to me, extort me. Instead of that, she calls her son, Charlie, who then calls the woman, Katie, who was his girlfriend, who set up the hit, who then calls up the hitman. So today's the anniversary of that, which is like that. Without that, like that's what's going to take out Donna. Because if you don't know, Donna Adelson's trial is coming up in September, and it already took out Charlie Adelson, who was convicted earlier this year. So this.
You really think that thing's going to go September? I don't know.
What do you mean? Why not?
It's just, I mean, it's like it's a quick turnaround for the defense, and it's one thing they got tiny what's his face on there. Yeah. Yeah, but there's new counsel, lead count. I don't know. It's just I know they all, because remember, they always set a trial date. Like there's always a trial date that's set in every case, like kind of at the front end. And typically
well, I'll tell you this, Bob. I don't know if you saw, they initially set up the trial date, and what happened was it's in late September, and it was during the Jewish holidays. So they made a motion with the court, which everyone agreed to. No, they're like, can we do this 2 weeks earlier because we don't want to and they granted it. So like, I feel like they wouldn't really like do that if they didn't think that was like a real. No, you think so?
But did that motion happen like immediately after they saw the dates? Like as soon as
no, it wasn't once they figured out what the dates were, they did it. I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? But like, because like
we've got to go, man.
I mean, it could. I mean, like, do we know? Has there been a speedy demand?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Like, just don't be shocked if it's continued, is all I'm saying. Certainly not saying it's not going. I would just be like, considering that it's just really, really hard to prepare for a trial in that short amount of time. And like, and for lay people, that may not seem like it's a short amount of time, but for lawyers, it is, because there's a tremendous amount of discovery to go to, and go through. That's why I'm saying having Rashbaum on there helps the defense, because they're not starting from scratch. Like the fact that he's there probably helps the concept of it going in September. If like there wasn't counsel that kind of knew the ins and outs of the case like the back of his hand,
right,
then I'm like, I don't think there's any way, unless they're making like a speedy trial play. You know what I mean? Like with Delphi, dude, I'm like, are they ready? Like,
right.
Doesn't seem like they're ready. I'm like nervous about the defense and the state being ready on that thing. I mean, we want a good trial,
right?
We want like a thorough trial always in every case. So,
Bob, you got some breaking news on our case that we're following now. Someone just tagged me in this. Nate Eaton, who is the guy who like covers this, who's been covering this since the beginning. Interesting developments during this break. Those of us in the gallery were held back and reminded to follow courtroom conduct rules because a phone alarm went off. But that's not the thing. As Melanie Gibb was in the hallway after the break, a lady waiting in line to get inside tells me a man ran after Gibb to serve her papers. Gibb refused to take it, and John Pryor came out of the courtroom saying, "Where is he? Where is he?" Pryor then told Gibb she has to take the papers. The prosecutors came out and said she can't be served a subpoena while on the stand. It appears Pryor wants Gibb as a defense witness too. Interesting stuff going on, folks. Right when Kara Reed starts, it's getting spicy, and so thank you,
man. So that's interesting. Like, I mean, I'm sure Pryor has her listed as, but she may have been dodging. I mean, Joe, like Jay, from your years of
oh yeah,
I mean, people be dodging.
Absolutely.
people be dodging, trying not to get served. So I mean, it's possible she was not. I disagree. I think you can absolutely serve somebody, or have the court do it, like right there in court, and say, "Look, Your Honor, we've had a witness get served as soon as they walked off the stand." Like you can't do it maybe while they're testifying, but the second they get off the stand, have your service processor there, boop, you've been served.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because like we've had, like, as an adjuster, we'd have to like, the people will call us and be like, "Well, they're here. Do we avoid?" And we'd be like, just take it, because this, if you avoid it now, they're gonna catch you like later. Like just take this, unless it's a statute of limitation thing, which hold on,
right.
New thread. We are back in the courtroom. All of the attorneys have been summoned to the Judge Boyd's chambers.
Oh shit.
Gib is sitting on the stand and Chad is sitting at the defense table staring down. I could tell you guys while we wait. So, I teased this a little bit. Bob, you were talking about while we wait, while they're in chambers and figure this out. We talked. You talked about getting defensive, and I said I would tell you about a time I was on the stand. So I was working for Geico, and Bob probably knows this because there's uninsured motorists is a it's I don't know if every state has it. Most have mandatory uninsured.
Most do, yeah.
So if you get into an accident with someone who doesn't have insurance, you come through your own insurance. I was an adjuster handling a claim where we disclaimed coverage because our guy wasn't cooperating. So disclaiming means like we have a policy, but if our guy never calls us and never gives us a statement, never tells us what to do, then we're not going to do anything for them because then they're not following the policy, which is kind of part of their job. So the person who gets into the accident is like, "Oh, well, I'm going uninsured motorist." They're like, "I am going through my own insurance," and then their insurance company's like, "Nah, we're bringing in Geico because we know he's got good coverage. We know." They called me up on the stand, and basically what the other insurance is like, "Did you really do a good enough job trying to get this guy to come down?" And it's tough, man. Like you were saying, Bob, like when they're grilling you and it was I took over a case because it takes a while, so like someone else is handling it. But even so, she's like, "Well, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do this? Did you send this letter?" And I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like it's tough on there. And the funniest thing, Bob, is the guy shows up to court. My insured, he shows up to court, and they're like, "Well, what are you doing? This guy's here. Obviously, he's going to cooperate." So I don't know if that made sense to people, but anyway,
it totally made sense to me.
I know you get it. I know you get it, but it's a little convoluted with uninsured motors. But yeah, they I was like, it's hard not to take offense when someone's grilling at you, and I can't imagine being in a criminal case like where they're accusing you of and especially if you're innocent. I mean, either way, but
even if you're like a lay witness, like you're not like the accused, but they're coming at you. Like it's just human nature to get defensive when anybody's like you feel that somebody's attacking you. Like forget about the courtroom, strip away the courtroom, and just think about in everyday life. If you feel that somebody's coming after you, it's your natural instinct to defend yourself, and if it's in words, then it's in words, So yeah, it's tough. And it's really tough when you're in the the trappings of the courtroom, because you do feel that. You feel the weight. Like they make these rooms typically impressive, for a reason. They want you to feel the weight of what you're doing, that this is real, that this matters, that there's actual ramifications from what's happening in this room today.
Right.
They want you to take your oath seriously. When, you raise your hand, they expect you to tell the truth up there. And, it's like, I've had witnesses that just, are just professional liars that just can I'm a terrible liar. Like I could not get on the stand and lie. I'd be doing all kinds of shit, all kinds of tells and I'm looking real uncomfortable shifting in my sheet. Like I'm not good at it, but some people could just lie their asses off without batting an eye.
And for me, I didn't even have there was no one in the court. No one cares about insurance. There's not a gallery who's what. So not only did I not have an audience in the courtroom, it wasn't live stream. We just had on Yindra, who was a witness in the Adelson case, and she, like you said, Bob, she's a totally she was just a friend of Katie, one of the people, and she just had to get some information. And but you forget, not only and she was talking about, she's like, this is live stream, so now and I've watched her testimony, and not only that, for people sometimes I forget, for these witnesses, particularly non-party, is their life doesn't end. Yindra had kids, she's getting subpoenaed, she has to go to depositions, it's a massive thing you get sucked into in these criminal cases, even when you're not someone who's at full. I mean, Melanie's different because there's obviously some questions of her. But again, she I don't know, does she live there? You got to fly there. There these things for people who have to go
and like you said, like social media and streaming and YouTube has changed the game. It's not aside from the inconvenience of having to go testify in court, it's like you're being exposed to the world. You know what I mean? It's like, if you've got kids, your kids are like, "Oh yeah, I saw your mom on TikTok last night."
Exactly. You're so right, Bob. You're so right. All right, let's see if they even mention this, or if they just go into the. Melanie gets off the witness stand, then she's someone's immediately serving her. She's got to be rattled now, I would think. I mean, more than we already talked about.
Oh, by the way, Sleuth Investigate, I saw your message. Thank you. I'll definitely be digging into those. She had sent me some docs, the docs on West Memphis 3. They're waiting for the jury. Oh, also, Jay, like, dude, so many things are happening in the world of true crime right now. So I don't know if you're aware, last night or yesterday, the defense in Kohlberger's case filed their amended notice of alibi, and they're
Oh, he was
claiming,
stargazing?
well, yeah, they're claiming that he had, that their phone expert, who's former law enforcement and apparently, is legit, is saying that his vehicle was nowhere, that they're going to be able to prove
Oh, wow.
that his vehicle was nowhere near the Kings Road address at the time that the state thinks that the murders happened. So,
wow.
Shit's getting interesting, man.
A lot of big cases are coming together at once.
Man, I'm so glad that one's not going until 25. Like, could you imagine if that thing was like down the pike, like right in like, because there's some people that are like, I've seen a couple people in chat that are disappointed that we're pivoting. Like, I get it, I do, but
we'll still keep you updated, don't
we
you?
will. Like, the girls will do a great job, and it'll be streamlined.
Oh, I gotta get the Brang the Jury sound effect. What's the matter with me?
Brang the Jury. Steve-O, I know, man. The sheath. Yeah, don't get me wrong. This is just the defense filing. So, like always.
Okay, thank you. Please be seated.
We got to wait until trial. Everything gets vetted.
All right.
All right, we're back on the record on case CR 22.
I have a sound effect called Newman, and now I just don't know if it's Hello Newman or Judge Newman. So let's
Hello Newman.
Let's give it a whirl and see if it's Brang the Jury. Here we go. I gotta.
Hello Newman.
Damn it.
Seinfeld.
211623 State of Idaho versus
pretty good
Chad
one,
Guy
too.
Daybell. I'll note that the witness, Ms. Gibb, is still under oath. The state's continuing with direct examination. We just concluded our mid-morning recess. It went slightly longer than anticipated. I had a matter I took up with counsel on a sidebar that was reported in the case. I believe we're ready to commence then with further examination. And Ms. Blake, just for scheduling purposes, we do want to take a lunch break today, approximately noon, if that works out with your scheduling.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll watch the clock.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Ms. Gibb, before we took the break, we'd been talking about the killing of Charles and your observation shortly after that. Prior to Charles' death, did you and Lori have conversations about her relationship with Chad?
Yes. Yes.
Do you recall if she shared with you the nature of their relationship?
Yes.
And what did she share with you, if you recall?
That they really loved each other. They had been in multiple lives. They had missions together. That there was some physical affection, contact.
And this was when Charles was still living as well?
Yes.
And we talked about when Chad came back down, or when Chad came down to Arizona after Charles had been killed, Lori and Chad talking about plans for a future together.
Right.
Did that include talk of the missions that you just referenced?
Yes.
Your Honor, I believe we already went over that before the break. If you'd like me to go over it again.
If that's an objection, then it's overruled.
And she shared with you that there was some kind of physicalness within their relationship.
Correct.
Did she tell you whether or not she thought that was okay because they were both married?
Yes. She said that every time she would get together with Chad, she would always ask Jesus if what was acceptable or appropriate that she could interact with Chad.
And if she felt she had the affirmation that it was okay, then she would do it?
I assume.
Did she tell you where they would meet up?
Hotels.
Did you ever talk to Chad or Lori about whether either of them were seeking a divorce?
Yes.
What did you learn in relation to that?
I asked why weren't they getting a divorce, and she told me that if Chad were to seek after a divorce, that he would be in trouble with Jesus, that he would lose his exaltations.
Did she tell you where she got that information?
She got it from Chad.
Do you know if Charles had started any divorce proceedings?
Oh, yes, I believe so.
But Lori didn't.
Correct.
Did you ever see Lori with more than one phone?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately how many phones you saw her with?
3.
Did she ever tell you anything about why she had 3 phones?
One was her own personal phone, and then one was she just had a connection with Chad through the other phone, and I'm not sure about the other one.
So one of the phones was to communicate with Chad.
Yes.
Did you ever learn if Chad had more than one phone?
I remember she saying he had a special phone just for her, but that's all I remember.
Did Lori ever share with you how often she and Chad were in contact?
It was mostly daily. I'm sure there was times where she said, she couldn't contact him for certain reasons, but mostly it was daily.
And would that have been approximately since they met that they stayed in that type of contact, if you know?
Yes, that I know of.
And we talked about Lori telling you Chad had shared with her that they'd been married in prior lives.
That's right.
Did she ever tell you specific names that they had in prior lives or who they were?
Yes.
What were some of those that she shared with you?
I'm trying to remember her names. I'm not remembering her names. I remember certain positions, though.
And what were those positions?
She was married to Moroni, and she was married to James, and she was she was Chad's wife, but he was James, and she was, I think, Elena. And then Chad was considered to be Methuselah, and she was his daughter, I believe, but I don't remember a name. Seemed like there was another time she was a lady that was married to a relative of Joseph Smith, but I can't recall her name right now. I can't, and there could have been another one. I'm just not recalling it.
And when you say you remember positions, were those biblical or figures within some scriptures?
Yes.
When she was Elena, do you know who Chad was supposed to have been in that life?
James, one of the apostles of Jesus Christ.
And is that one of the times that they were married in a previous life?
Yes.
Did she tell you where she learned that information?
From Chad.
Did she ever tell you how Chad would get his information?
She said that he would sit in his portal and ask questions.
Did you ever see the portal that was referenced?
Yes. Oh, well, not his, but hers. Yeah.
And what did you observe in relation to Lori's portal?
It was nothing but, just a spot in her closet. I mean, it didn't look like anything. She just considered it her portal, but it looked like just a regular space.
And who told her that was a portal?
Chad told her and taught her about it.
Portal time, baby.
Portal time.
Had Lori ever talked to you about portals before meeting Chad?
I can't recall.
So you mean it was just a part of a closet, not a big circle with like electricity coming out of it that you could jump through? You mean it was just a closet?
Hey, have you seen my portal? It's right over there. It's in the closet.
It's in the closet.
Do you recall when
We
the
could go into the past. Have you ever seen the show Sliders? We could get
last time you
can
saw
see
Tylee was?
Jabroni. Oh, I mean
In
Moroni.
Arizona, July
like
or
Doctor
August
Strange.
of
You just take a circle and
2019.
And after Charles' death, at some point, do you recall Lori leaving Arizona?
Yes,
Do you know where she relocated?
she relocated to Rexburg.
Did she ever talk to you about why she left to Arizona to go to Rexburg?
Yes, she wanted to be with Chad and start their missions together.
Do you know whose idea it was for her to go to Idaho? Did she share that with you?
I can't remember if it was hers or both of theirs.
But she wanted to go to be with Chad.
Correct.
And when she left to go to Idaho, to the best of your knowledge, was Tammy still alive?
She was.
We had talked about people being light and dark. Do you recall if Lori ever said anything to you in relation to Tylee and whether or not what her level was or her rating?
She did say she was dark at some point. I don't remember the rating.
Do you know who gave her that information?
I'm guessing it was Chad. I don't remember.
Generally speaking, would she tell you she turned to Chad for these answers?
Yeah.
Did you know of anything else Chad used to get answers?
Yes, one time I saw him with a pendulum.
And do you recall what the pendulum looked like?
It was gold, I think, or brass, and it had like a pointiness to the bottom of it and like a string.
Do you recall when you saw that?
That was in February of 2019.
Do you recall where you were?
Yeah, I was here in Boise, Idaho.
And do you recall why you were in Boise?
Yeah, there was a conference that weekend that I came to.
Do you recall who was present with you that you associated with at that conference?
Yes, Chad was there, and Sulema, Serena, and Audrey. And there were a lot of other people, but that was in the little small circle of friends.
Were those the individuals around when you saw the pendulum?
Right, correct.
I didn't hear you mention Lori. Was she there?
No.
Do you know where she was?
She was in Hawaii, I believe.
When Lori moved to Idaho, do you recall who went with her?
JJ and Tylee and Alex. He was either there before or after. I don't know. I know at some point he was up there.
So Alex, her brother, moved around the same time she did?
Yeah. Yes.
And this is after Charles has been killed, correct?
Correct.
And it's after Chad has told Alex that he's Lori's protector. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Do you recall if you ever spoke to Lori after she'd moved to Idaho?
Yes.
Do you recall if you heard anyone in the background when you talked to her?
Yes, she was in her apartment playing games with Alex and Tylee.
So you heard Tylee in the background when you talked to her?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately when that would have been?
August or September, not sure.
Would it have been shortly after they'd moved to Rexburg?
Yes, they just moved in.
At some point after Lori and Alex and the children moved to Idaho, did you end up visiting Lori?
I did.
Do you recall approximately when that was?
The weekend of September 22nd.
And was that of 2019?
Correct.
Do you recall why you ended up coming to Idaho during that weekend?
Yes, there was a conference in town, and then I was going to record a podcast with her.
Had you and Lori recorded podcasts before?
Yes.
When you came to Idaho, where did you end up staying?
At Lori's house.
And did you drive or fly? Do you recall?
I flew.
Who picked you up at the airport?
Lori.
When you got to Lori's house during that weekend, who was present?
Alex was there and JJ was there. And then occasionally Chad would come over.
And then was there an individual named David Warwick that also ended up there?
Oh, yes.
And who was David Warwick?
He's my husband now.
And at the time?
He was my boyfriend.
Do you know if Alex had his own apartment as well?
Yes.
And he did?
He did.
But he would be at Lori's at times?
Yes.
I didn't hear you say anything about Tylee. Did you ever see Tylee when you arrived in Idaho?
No.
Did you ask
Hey, babe, I remember to use the cold water with the washing machine. Thanks for the note.
Lori at any point where Tylee was?
Yes.
What were you told?
I was told that she was at the BYU Idaho campus at school, and she got roommates with some girls that she was able to get her in.
Did Lori talk any more about Tylee while you were there?
No.
Yes.
Did you ever see Tylee come visit?
No.
Ever hear Lori on the phone with her?
No.
Do you know whose room you stayed in while you were there?
Tylee's.
Were a lot of Tylee's items in the room?
Nothing was in there. That was clothing or anything, just furniture.
Did Lori talk to you about JJ while you were there?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She told me that the day before I arrived that he became dark.
So previously she'd told you Tylee was dark.
Correct.
Correct?
Yeah.
And now JJ was dark.
Correct.
Did you observe JJ that weekend?
Yes.
Did you observe any behaviors that caused you concern?
No.
Do you recall her telling you why she believed he was dark?
Either Chad told her or she figured it out herself. I'm thinking it was Chad, but I'm not remembering.
And Chad was present at times that weekend,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Was he present when there was talk of JJ being dark?
It's possible.
Did you ever observe any interactions between JJ and Chad while you were there?
Yes.
And what were those?
JJ seemed to be upset, and so Chad took him upstairs with him, and they went into
All right, I'll construe that as an objection based on foundation. Ms. Blake?
Ms. Gibb, do you recall approximately when in your visit the interaction occurred?
I feel like it was Thursday, like I got there on a Wednesday, I believe. I feel like it was the next day.
And I guess for reference, how long were you there at Lori's?
From Wednesday to Monday morning.
So best of your recollection, this is around your second or your first full day there.
I think so.
And if you could go ahead and tell us again what you observed.
Okay. He took him upstairs, and then after a period of time, he came back downstairs. I believe he was holding his hand, and that's what I observed with them.
Did you observe any injuries to Chad?
He had a red scratch on his neck.
Did he tell you how he got that?
I asked him, and he said that JJ had scratched him.
Had you seen many interactions between Chad and JJ before that?
No.
When you were there, you talked about Chad coming and going. Did he stay the night to the best of your knowledge?
No, I never noticed that.
And this weekend that you're there, Tammy was still alive, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you ever hear Chad talk about Tammy?
A little bit.
Do you recall what you heard?
Chad and David Warwick were speaking at the island, and David was asking him questions about Tammy, and Chad said, please don't share this with anybody, my relationship with Lori. And so David asked questions about the relationship he had with Tammy.
Ms. Blake, objection based on foundation.
Your Honor, I think she's recalling events from that weekend. So we do have a narrowed time frame. I can ask a follow-up question, but it's based on her personal knowledge.
I'll sustain the objection if you want to ask additional foundational questions, Ms. Blake.
Do you recall approximately when you heard this conversation between David and Chad during your stay?
It would have been on the weekend because David was there already. He didn't come until Friday, so could have been like on a Saturday or Sunday.
So sometime around Saturday or Sunday?
Yes.
And what did you hear Chad say about Tammy?
That she was a good wife, I believe. I'm not recalling right now what he said.
Do you recall him ever mentioning that he was going to divorce her?
Never heard that.
Ever hear him talk about getting separated?
No.
Did you observe Chad and Lori interact while you were there?
Yes.
Did you observe them interact several times through your stay?
Yes.
What were your observations of their interactions?
They seemed to be a couple that was close and loved each other. There was affection, hugging. I saw her kiss him on the cheek. They were singing together, maybe a little dancing.
So affectionate with each other.
Yes.
Do you recall ever seeing them act affectionate outside of the apartment?
Yes.
What do you recall about that?
We were walking around the campus and they were holding hands.
Campus is pretty broad, Ms. Blake.
When you refer to campus, do you know which campus that was?
The BYU, Idaho.
All right.
The BYU Idaho campus is what you said?
Yes.
I'm going to pause so you can take a drink.
Thank you.
And do you recall approximately when you went and walked the track during your time in Idaho?
It was really in the beginning, so it was either Wednesday night or Thursday night.
And what did you observe between them at the BYU Idaho track?
Very affectionate and loving towards each other.
Did you ever ask them or did they ever say anything to you about that?
I asked them if they were concerned, if they were worried if Tammy might see them together, and she let me know that Tammy, wasn't aware of his personal life like that, where he went.
But again, no indication of divorce or separation.
Correct.
Did Lori ever talk to you about September 22nd having any kind of special meaning to her.
Yes.
What did she tell you about that?
She told me that it was an anniversary for her of when she saw Moroni in the temple.
And do you recall the last time you saw JJ?
It was the Sunday night, the 22nd.
What was happening the last time you saw him, if you remember?
I was in the house, Lori's house, and I was doing a recording with Lori and David, and Alex walked in the door holding JJ on his shoulder and was taking him to bed. He had fallen asleep.
And did you see where Alex put JJ to bed?
No.
Do you know which room JJ normally slept in?
He often slept with his mom in the corner of her room. There was a little spot that she would put a bed in there for him, but he also had his own bedroom too.
Did he sleep in his bedroom that night?
No.
And how do you know that?
Because I was in that bedroom, then JJ's bedroom, so he wasn't in there.
And you talked earlier, you were going to stay in Tylee's room.
Right.
Can you tell us why you ended up in JJ's room?
So I was, slept often in Tylee's room. And then when David got there, him and I, we were in the same room that night together talking and reading scriptures and going to bed.
So did David have his things in JJ's room?
Yeah.
So is it your understanding JJ was put to bed in Lori's room that night?
Yes.
What, if anything, happened that night out of the ordinary?
David woke up with just a panic. He had a really bad dream, like a nightmare, and he was very disturbed by it. And I asked him, what was going on, what he experienced. And so I was concerned, and I thought I could call out and see if I can get some help from Lori and Chad to see if they could give him a priesthood blessing of comfort.
Judge, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first word. Should give him a what blessing?
Priesthood blessing.
Okay.
Did you in fact try to contact Chad?
Yes.
How did you try to contact him?
Text or phone call.
Did he respond?
No.
And would this have been in the early morning hours?
Sometime in the early morning.
Did you attempt to make contact with Lori?
Yes.
And how did you try to do that?
The same, text and phone call. And then I went to her room to see if she was there, and it was locked.
Did she respond to the text or phone call?
No.
And then her bedroom door was locked?
Correct.
You have no way to know who was on the other side?
No.
Did anyone ever open the door for you?
No.
And you said that was on the 22nd.
Correct.
Did you see JJ the next day?
No.
Did you ever see JJ again?
No.
After Charles was killed, did Lori ever share with you how she was going to survive financially?
She talked about money she received from JJ from his Social Security. She talked about, and let's see, she talked about, I think, like, was it Social Security for Charles, and then we talked about insurance a little bit, but I'm not sure if that's what you're thinking of.
So do you know if she ever received any life insurance for Charles?
I don't think so.
So to the best of your knowledge, she was living off the Social Security money?
Yeah, to my knowledge.
Do you know if Lori ever got a job when she came to Idaho?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Did she ever tell you that she had a job lined up and that's why she was moving to Idaho?
No.
At some point, did Lori talk to you about some struggles with JJ?
Yes.
What did she share with you about that?
She said that he was acting out more, as far as the weekend that I was there in September, that he was acting like he was possessed. He was, one minute he would be upset, one minute she would say he was talking very intelligent, just a variety of different behaviors. She seemed troubled by it, that he had been taken over by evil spirit, that he was upsetting. I don't know. She just seemed kind of upset by it.
Did she ever indicate any kind of a plan of how she was going to handle that?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She said that she wanted Kay to have JJ.
Did she ever talk to you about a plan to get JJ to Kay?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She said that she wanted to meet together with her in the airport and talk to her about her, like she had cancer or something like that, and that if she would take him or a relative that was close by to Kay's family, that would take him.
And did Lori talk to you about coming up with what to tell Kay to get her to take JJ?
Yeah, we talked about that.
And did you help her come up with an idea to tell Kay that Lori was sick and so she needed Kay to take JJ?
She was throwing different ideas out with me, and so we talked about that kind of scenario. Yeah.
Was it your understanding that Lori actually did in fact contact Kay? Is that what she told you?
Yes, she did.
Did she tell you that in fact she had given JJ to Kay?
She did.
And we go back to the last time you saw JJ is the night of September 22nd.
Yes.
That next morning, did Lori say anything in relation to where JJ was that day?
I believe she said that David remembers this more than I do, but that he was with Alex that morning.
And is it sometime after that that Lori leads you to believe that she sent JJ to be with Kay?
Yes.
Did Lori talk to you about how she transferred JJ to Kay, the custody?
Yes.
And how was that?
She said they met up in the Salt Lake City airport and she took JJ.
And we'd talked, actually, let me back up. Sometime later so you're there in September.
Mm-hmm.
Did you continue to be in contact with Lori after that trip?
Yes.
Did you ever hear JJ in the background on any phone calls?
No.
Do you recall getting a call from Chad sometime in November of
Yes.
2019?
Yes.
Do you recall where you were when you got that call?
Yes, I was in Utah.
Do you recall approximately when it was?
I felt like it was like 2 or 3 days before Thanksgiving.
Do you recall what Chad told you or why he was calling?
Yes.
And why was that?
He told me that the Rexburg police were going to call me and ask about JJ.
What, if anything, did he tell you to do in regards to that?
He asked me not to pick up the phone and talk to them.
Did he tell you why he thought the police were going to call you?
Because he said that Lori had told the police that I had JJ.
How did Chad sound in that phone call?
Nervous.
Did you have JJ?
No.
Did you ask Chad where JJ was at that time?
I said, he's not with Kay, and he said no.
And prior to that, where had Lori told you JJ was?
He was with Kay.
Did Chad tell you anything else that you recall?
He said that Lori would shortly be calling me after that, that she was talking to the police. I can't remember right now everything else. It was very brief.
Do you recall if Chad indicated where he was when he placed that phone call?
I don't recall.
Did you learn at some point where Chad and Lori were? What state?
Oh, Idaho.
Did Lori, in fact, end up reaching out to you?
She did.
Do you recall what she told you?
When she answered the phone, or when I answered the phone, she was very positive and upbeat, as if everything was okay. And she said that she was protecting Tylee and JJ because Kay was and others were trying to kidnap him, so that's why. And she told me to go to a Frozen movie and take a picture to act like there's other kids like I had him.
And did law enforcement, in fact, try to reach out to you?
They did.
Did you answer initially?
Initially, no.
Melanie and Lori.
Do you recall at any point if Lori, Alex, or Chad had told you anything regarding law enforcement?
At some point, yes. I can't remember the beginning, but I remember having a phone conversation with Alex, or maybe it was in person, that the police had come to his house and Melanie's house to ransack his house. And they came questioning, asking about where JJ was.
At any point, were you told whether or not law enforcement were dark?
Yes.
And what were you told in regards to that?
I remember Alex saying they were considered dark translated beings.
And again, who was it that was able to determine if someone was dark, from your understanding?
From my understanding, it was Chad.
So initially, you don't answer the call from law enforcement. Why was that?
Because I was absolutely did not know and understand what to do about it.
At some point, did you end up talking to law enforcement?
I did.
What did you initially tell them in relation to JJ?
So when I called Gilbert Police, I initially told them I had JJ, but then I didn't have him. He was back with Lori.
So initially, you complied a little bit with what Lori had asked.
Correct.
Is that fair?
Yes.
At some point, did you make contact with law enforcement again?
Yes.
And did you end up making contact with them through an attorney?
Initially.
Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
So right after I discovered that I needed to go talk to the police, the day I was going to go, I had a phone call from a friend who I hadn't talked to in about a year or two. He was an attorney, happened to be an attorney, and he felt impressed. He told me to call me out of the blue. I mean, no knowledge of this case had been revealed to the public, so he wouldn't have known to call me. And then I felt to share a little bit about what was going on. And so he said, I should probably do a child, what do they call that? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name.
Are you thinking welfare check?
Welfare check. And I really wasn't sure what that meant because I've never been involved in that kind of dynamic before. So, yeah.
And did that friend of yours, the attorney, reach out to law enforcement and request a welfare check?
Yes.
At this point in time, did you have concerns about JJ's well-being?
Yes.
Did you have concerns about Tylee's well-being?
Yes.
Did you end up sitting down with law enforcement later and telling them more about, in regards to whether or not JJ was ever with you?
Yes, I told him everything.
And did you do that without an attorney?
Yes.
And did you in fact tell them JJ had never been with you?
Correct.
Did you learn who had made or who had initially reported the children missing?
I'm sorry, can you...
Did you ever learn who had reported the children or JJ missing?
Are you referring to like maybe Kay contacting the police? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you learn that?
I think so. I think so.
So originally, Lori told you she'd given JJ to Kay. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Meg says, does anyone else think Chad's head looks too big for his shirt? Chad's head looks too big for this planet. Currently, NASA is just making sure that no planets are going out of alignment because of his big dumb head.
And then
Huge.
later she told
Huge.
you Kay was going to try to kidnap JJ.
Right.
Did Lori disclose the location of JJ to you at that time?
No.
At some point, did you end up, or let me back up. After those calls from Chad and Lori around Thanksgiving, did you have further contact with Chad and or Lori?
So after, yes, after I went to I went to Arizona for Thanksgiving, and Dave and I pulled over and called them because we were really concerned and wanted to have a prayer. We were worried about everybody. So that was a few days later.
And did Chad or Lori answer?
We called both of them, so.
And they were together?
Yes.
In that conversation, did Chad or Lori tell you where JJ was?
They didn't tell me where he was.
At some point, did you end up talking to Alex?
Yes.
And did you talk to Alex about your concerns with JJ?
I did.
Do you recall what Alex told you?
Yes. I asked him.
Judge, could I have some foundation as to when this conversation supposedly took place?
Objection based on foundation, Ms. Blake.
I'll ask some additional questions.
Thank you.
Do you recall approximately when you spoke with Alex about your concerns?
I think it was the day or two after Thanksgiving.
Do you recall where you spoke to him?
Yes, it was in Arizona, and we were behind the house that he just moved into, which was Suleiman's house. And there's a field there. We were walking and talking, and that's where I asked him.
Do you recall if anyone else was present for that conversation?
Melanie was there, and then shortly after that, Suleiman showed up.
So, and when you say Melanie, was that Lori's niece?
Yes.
And what did Alex tell you in relation to where JJ was or to your concerns for JJ?
I just said, do I want to know where JJ was? And he said no. And then he proceeded to tell me about the police coming to their apartment, and I didn't understand why they would do that. So we talked a little bit about that.
But when you asked if you wanted to know where JJ was, his response was you didn't want to know?
That's right.
At some point, did you end up making a phone call to Chad and Lori on December 8th of 2019?
Yes.
Who was present when you made that phone call?
No one.
Did you record the phone call?
Yes.
Was someone there recording it for you?
No.
What device did you use to record it?
Cell phone.
Had law enforcement asked you to make this phone call?
No.
And you did in fact record it?
Correct.
Judge, I have what's been marked as State's Exhibit 42. It's a jump drive. I have a copy for counsel. And I would request to publish the first portion for identification purposes only.
All right. Before it's
I have one.
published, of course, we'll go through the question of admissibility. Mr. Pryor, is there any objection to Exhibit 42 being admitted?
I would have preferred a little more foundation, Judge, but at this point, I'm going to stipulate to the admission of the exhibit and allow her to move forward.
Okay, Exhibit 42 is admitted, but pending an additional or a first proffer that it is actually the exhibit Mr. Pryor believes it in the court improperly marked. In other words, Ms. Blake, if you just start a portion of it and let everyone confirm it's the call you're referring to.
Thank you, Your Honor. And that was actually my intention in order to lay more foundation.
To tsunami.
It's funny because Idaho is landlocked.
We're trying to get the scripture fight call in. Can't wait to hear the scripture fight. That's always fun.
Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one.
Yeah, if you guys missed this call, this call is spicy.
Sorry about that technical problem. I think I have it figured out.
Lawyers and tech, man. Lawyers and tech. Phew.
Not just
Spicy.
okay. Hopefully, third time's a charm.
Which is worth, Bob? Lawyers in tech or lawyers in math?
Aren't they the same thing?
It's pretty equal.
I mean, tech is super numbery.
No.
Now that would have been funny, poor Ashlyn.
I'm going to pause there briefly. Were you able to hear that?
What?
Do you recognize the voice on there?
Yes.
And
Huh?
whose voice is that?
I didn't hear shit.
We didn't hear shit.
And do you recognize this as the recording that you made on December 8th of 2019?
What?
Your Honor, I believe with the additional foundation, this may be, or I'd move for the admission of this exhibit.
So were they
All
playing
right,
the
I
foundation?
previously
like,
admitted
in
it. May it be
headphones?
published, Mr. Pryor?
Yeah, there's
Oh,
no, Judge, you're
it
right.
has
You've
to
already
be, 'cause I
admitted
didn't
it,
hear
so it can be
anything.
published at this point.
Okay. Before we do that, I am going to maybe suggest we get a handheld microphone if one's readily available. We weren't getting great audio off of the mic on the stand there, Ms. Blake.
You have an extra desk or something?
2 turntables and a microphone?
One that's not being used with anything else on it?
Wait, I don't understand. What?
Just put it on that and see.
I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, me too.
Are they, is she just playing it like off her computer as
Yeah, much
opposed
slower.
to like?
And Your Honor, I think I had forgotten to turn the mic on again, so we'll see if it plays through and if it picks up better.
Okay.
Yeah, because we didn't hear shit.
And I am calling
There we
Chad
go.
Daybell's phone number,
There we go.
and hopefully I will be talking to both of them, Chad and Lori. So here goes the phone call.
Sometimes Chad does block the signal from the towers, though. So like, it's 50-50.
Hi, Chad. Hey, Lori. Hi.
Let me put on speaker.
Oh, okay.
Scripture
All
fight.
right.
We're in phone. How are you guys?
Okay, how are you doing, babe?
I'm doing pretty good, thanks. I was wondering, where are you guys?
We're just hanging out.
Hanging out? Are you in Idaho?
We're in Idaho.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to ask you a question, if you don't mind, Lori.
Yeah,
I want to know, you remember we talked about JJ going to Kay's house, and you told me they went there, and now he's not there? I was wondering what happened.
well, I had to move him somewhere else because of her actions. So,
Was she doing something? Like, was she trying to come get him or something? Or like trying to kidnap him?
Oh yeah, it's case.
Well, she said that lots of times before, but
Okay. When I asked Chad the other day, I was like, hey, where is JJ? And he said, for my security, he didn't want me to know. So is there a reason I should be in danger to know where he is?
no, it's nobody. It's his danger. It's the danger that there's people after me.
Okay.
So
if you knew, that puts you in a danger.
Well, just in a bad position. Everybody, if they don't know anything, then they don't have to say they know.
Right. So you're just worried. Okay.
I'm just to keep him protected and
keep you protected.
And keep everybody else.
I appreciate that.
I'm just going to
I
repeat
was wondering
everything
why
Lori
you told
says.
the police why he was with me.
I just needed to have somebody so I wouldn't have to tell them where he really was, because they were going to tell Kay where he is.
Oh, yeah. So do you think it's like your family, or, like your family, your dad, or, those people?
Family, well, not my whole family, but as you know, most of my family is working against me and with her, basically.
Yeah. Is JJ safe?
He is safe and happy.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Are you afraid of anything? Like, are you afraid to tell me that you're just afraid that that I could be in danger? Like if I knew, like, how could that hurt me? I don't understand how that could hurt me if I knew where he was.
Well, I'm just not telling anybody so that nobody has to say where he is or get questioned to where he is, so I can keep him as safe as possible.
Yeah. Okay. I hope that he's okay. I hope you guys are okay. But I did have a question that I asked Al at one point, your brother, if I wanted to know, like where he was, and he said I did not want to know, and that he could not be found. So what does that mean?
I don't know if he would say that, but it's the same story. Like I don't even want Al to know. I don't want anybody to know, so that nobody has to be worried about it. I mean, nobody has to be questioned about it, so he can be safe.
Yeah. So how long are you going to be away for? Like, are you ever going to be able to come out and come back to society again? Or are you going to keep, come back? What does that look like?
I will do whatever the Lord needs me to do every day. So
I just wondered if I was ever going to see you again.
Absolutely, you will.
Okay. So maybe when they're done chasing you, you'll be able to come out again, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's a ridiculous thing for them to be working with Kay to find me. There's nothing that's gone on that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're working with her in some dark capacity. The police are working with her in some dark capacity. There's no reason for them to be after me in the first place.
Yeah, has she threatened you at all?
Yes, lots of times.
Oh boy, what did she say?
Well, it's in emails and everything.
So like, she said she was going to come take him, or she was?
There's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Nellie.
I know, it sounds like it. I'm just worried for you guys because, he's missing, and,
I know exactly where he is. He's perfectly fine.
Okay, well, I hope so. I had a scripture I wanted to share with you, if you don't mind.
I'd love it.
I was thinking about some of the things you guys have gone through, and I saw the scripture today, and I want you to
Let me ask you a question. About the scripture. Okay. So, did Alma turn himself into King Noah? Or what was he required to do?
Well, King Noah was incredibly wicked.
Yeah.
So he fled his evil ways, which is adultery and living riotously and breaking all the commandments.
Right. So what was he required to do, Alma?
He had to go and flee so that he would be safe and then help other people realize how, jacked up the system was and the government was.
What about Moroni? What was he required to do at the end?
To carry on those plates and bury them. That was his responsibility.
What did he do to do that? What did he have to do to do that? Did he hide?
He had to hide. He had to hide because they were so. Everybody was killing everybody in the society. Everybody was dying. They were killing all the Nephites.
How in the scriptures had to hide in the cavity of a rock by day and go out by night?
The prophets did.
They did.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for sharing that with me. Okay, this scripture is just something that may be thoughtful for you. For behold, this is Doctrine and Covenants, section 3, verse 7 and 8. It says, for behold, you should not have feared man more than God. Although men set not the counsels of God and despise his words, yet you should have been faithful, and he would have extended his arm and supported you against all the fiery darts of the adversary. He would have been with you in every trouble. So when we work with the Lord and are obedient, He's going to protect us from adversarial darts and all kinds of negativity. But when we open the door to Satan, he comes in and then he attacks. And then he takes away to make it look like somebody else took it away. But that's not how God works. He doesn't work in darkness.
I agree with you 100%. And that's what the Lord is doing for me. Exactly what he's doing for me.
I see your rock, and I raise you to Satan coming in the door.
Darkness is knocking on the door all the time because that's the way dark works with the light. And I promise you that I have done nothing wrong in this case, but sometimes you have to hide in a cavity of a rock for your own life safety. And that's what the Lord requires of you sometimes. And that's how it is. And I'm sorry that's how it is, because there is a lot of darkness on the earth.
I know.
It's been after me for zero reason besides the darkness of Kay, which you already know she's dark.
I haven't met her enough to know if she is dark or not. I've just met her slightly, and she seemed like a normal kind of person, but then I haven't engaged with her that much, so I don't know that personally.
So you don't know about her changing the thing for herself to be the beneficiary of a policy and all that stuff. None of that's dark, right?
Well, I haven't seen those documents, so I have no way of knowing.
I've seen them on my computer.
No, I have not. I haven't even looked on your computer before. You haven't showed me anything.
I don't think being controversial to me, or if you're recording this conversation for the police or whatever, I don't know what your intention is on this phone call.
Lori
knows.
knows.
With all my heart, and I have forever, and I will always love you.
I appreciate those words, but if you really love me, you wouldn't have told the police that I had JJ with me.
Oh,
that's not what a friend does.
Spicy.
That just makes me look weird, and it's not safe for me. That doesn't look good.
Makes you look.
You have to think of my welfare if you love me.
I do, and I did exactly what I felt the Lord was instructing me to do. And I appreciate you, and I love you.
I
never do anything to harm you. And you can have all of this confirmed to you by the Lord.
I have. And my conscience is clear. I feel very understanding what's really going on, Lori. And I believe that you have been very deceived by Satan. I believe that he has tricked you. And I don't believe that what you're doing is correct. I just don't. I mean, Tammy dies, and then your husband died, and then he's missing. It just doesn't sound like God's plan to me. It gives me a gut feeling, like in my gut, it feels weird. It doesn't feel right. I don't have peace about it. I never have felt 100% peace about it. I always felt like a little weird in my stomach about all these things.
You know me, Mel. You know me. This does not sound like you. This sounds like you've been influenced by somebody dark who wants you to believe dark things and have fear of the celestial world.
I don't have fear. You obviously do.
No, I have a piece of conscience and I can see clearly.
Boom. Roasted.
Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I love you so much.
Love you
I know
so
you
much.
do.
Bye.
I don't know what else to say.
Stand Christ when he comes again, and he's coming soon, and we will all stand there, and you will know at that point that he has supported me and has supported me the whole time, and I have not been deceived. I just want to testify that I know Tammy does. I've done conspiracy theories. My sister-in-law's right behind it all, and I hope that you're not being influenced by that dark team.
I don't know who she is. I'm sorry, you said your sister-in-law? I don't even know her.
Oh, I know, but she's coming up with the same type of theories. Mm-hmm. And it's just not true. My own children were there. They testified that Tammy had been getting weaker and sick, and I begged her to go to the doctor. Her heart was failing her. She was physically falling apart, but she hates doctors, and she just passed away. That's how it happened. My son Garth was right there with me the whole time. My kids were at the house within 20 minutes of her passing. There were 2 coroners. They checked her out right there on the bed. All these conspiracy theories just make me sick to my stomach. Just absolutely sick. I know I've been told for years that Tammy would pass away at a young age. I had no idea that Lori would even be a part of my life. I just knew that my life had 2 segments. And that I know Tammy's on a special mission and she's with my kids. She's visited them. There's so much, Melanie, that you just have to have faith. And this is not some sort of master plan. There's no way Lori and I should ever come up with this. It's just...
You can understand my concern, correct?
I can from an outside perspective, but from someone who knows as much as you know, no, not really. But we can feel Dave's influence on you. I can feel that for sure.
He's a very good man, and he has a very strong foundation, that I know.
I know, but he seems to be the one that's putting the doubts in your mind.
No. You know what? I have come to understand that my gut feeling, I was not listening to it. And I always felt uncomfortable with many things.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry that I included you in those teachings then for your own sake, because I wish that you didn't have as much knowledge as you have, because you will be accountable for the knowledge that you do have, Mom.
So are you.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So
I have no fear.
Yeah.
I have no fear of that.
Hey,
But
Lori,
I really, tell
me where the kids are.
I was reading the story of Korihor, and it is so very similar to this. You just can't see it, but he did it because he was trying to reclaim a people, and he thought at the very end, because of his carnal and natural desires, that's what influenced him. And he was very, very deceiving.
Natural desires?
Well, honey, you got a lot of natural desires. We all know that.
Oh,
spicy.
You know what she just said there? She said this.
You saying you want a piece of me?
That's what you think is me, Korihor? Are you kidding me right now?
No,
I think both of you have similarities. It's in the scriptures. It's in the scriptures. And the scriptures are very powerful.
Yes, they are. I live by the scriptures, as you know.
I know, but we can rest the scriptures for our own vain glory.
I rested the scriptures?
We can do that. And I feel that you have to suit our belief systems.
Do I rest the scriptures? Is that what you're accusing me of at this point?
I feel that you have.
Boom.
Why do you feel that way? I need an explanation on this.
Because if you look, like the scripture just shared, okay, the
scriptures every single day, you know?
I know you read them. I don't doubt that.
But this scripture right here says that you will be supported by all against the fiery darts of the adversary. You would have been supported if you had not opened dark portals and dark junk. You would have been safe.
Dark junk.
If you would have obeyed God, he would have had your back. But you have been chased and tortured and
this or not,
I'm sorry?
he had back. So,
well, if he has your back, you would not be able to tell me where you are, and we couldn't find JJ. Like, where is he? I've been asking, where is he? And you know what I mean? Like, that's
I could tell everyone where JJ is right now, and that would not be good for JJ. So I'm sorry that you don't want me to protect my children, but I would never ask you to not protect your children.
Of course you wouldn't.
So I can tell that you're just adversarial, Mel. I love you. I'm sorry that you feel this way.
Because I actually do care. I'm sharing what I feel for you because I know your salvation's in trouble for what you've done.
Okay, my salvation is not in trouble at all. And I think you should check that with the Lord again.
I
check it with the
I
Lord.
felt a lot of things from the Lord.
Boom.
And this doesn't feel right.
Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way, sweetheart. I'm sorry that you're friends with all those who are against me. Joseph Smith's friends turned against me.
I'm not a friend. I'm not friends with people that are against you.
Apparently you are.
I am not. I don't know Kay. I don't know who you're talking about. Your sister. I don't even know what her name or who she is. I don't know any of those people. Why would they contact me anyway? How would I even know about that?
Well, you're friends with Dave, and he's apparently, you know.
Well, David is a very righteous man, and I've always known that grounding about him. And he has a lot of beautiful experiences with the Lord, and these are not the same. You know, when you get the priesthood, that's Peter, James, and John shows up, and then he confirms all of those in the circle that are to get it, and everybody's a witness of that. Everybody's a witness that the pattern is in the scriptures. There's no witness that you ever receive what you think you received. Nobody has seen that but you.
Damn.
There's no witness. The witness, Joseph Smith, Oliver Cowdery, Martin Harris, the 8 witnesses, they all showed up.
Is there a witness when Jesus, Heavenly Father, gave that to Joseph Smith by himself in the grove? Was there witness?
No, but they had it later with other people. That was
they Peter, James, and John, they start singing California Dreamin'.
one experience, but others joined in later when he brought other people into it. They had experiences.
Scriptures, yes or no?
I'm sorry?
Is that in the scriptures, yes or no?
That Joseph was alone when he saw God the Father and Jesus Christ? Yes, he was alone.
He was alone.
But he had to open it up first.
That's not a pattern at all.
Honey, what I'm saying is that after he saw that and other people joined in, they saw the things with him. He wasn't alone. There was a witness for them. There was no witness. Anybody's never seen what you've seen or experienced what you've seen. That's your own witness, but nobody said that.
No, God knows it, and I will never deny it. For my soul would be at stake if I did. So you can say it didn't happen to me, Mel, but if I say it, then I am accountable. You didn't witness it.
Okay.
I did.
But your behaviors is not, okay, I understand that's what you believe you saw, but this is the thing, as I see, is that your behavior is not one of somebody that's seen Christ. Your behavior. What?
Never had any idea that you would be the person of all people to turn me. I cannot believe
I am asking questions, and I am concerned for you. That is what somebody does when they care.
You don't sound like you're concerned. You sound like you're accusatory. You do not sound concerned. You sound pissed off.
I'm not. I am troubled. Maybe that's the better word. Troubled. Because these things, like you being with Chad before he's even divorced, is unusual behavior for a person that's seen Jesus Christ.
I was never with him, and he was never divorced.
Honey, I've seen you guys together. So I haven't ever seen you I've never seen you with Chad kiss him and walk around the track at BYU with him. I never saw that. You
say you were the one just feeling guilty about being with someone before they were divorced.
Oh, honey.
Ooh.
I think that's not what we're talking about here.
Wait, it's not what we're talking about here. That's what I'm saying. You are going off the deep end. But
well, I'm just saying this is not a behavior of someone that sees Jesus Christ. It's not the behavior.
Really? Have you ever seen Jesus Christ? So do you know what the future behavior would be if you had seen Jesus Christ?
I know that when I prayed.
Me to do every day, and he does protect me, and he is protecting me, and he will protect me against this accusation as well. And we will both stand there with him. And you tell me
prison,
if I
bitch.
was lying or not. But we're both standing there with Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Ooh, the old hang up. That's one of the great phone calls of all time. I mean, that is.
And Miss Gibb, it sounded like that call abruptly ended. What happened?
Just disconnected. Sometimes it disconnects in that particular area that we're in.
When this phone call takes place, did you know the location of Chad and Lori?
No.
They hadn't shared that with you?
No.
At the beginning of the call, we hear some laughter. Do you know who was laughing? Do you remember? Maybe I'll ask it this way. Did Chad and Lori seem upset when you called them initially?
Oh, no.
Did they seem to be in pretty good moods?
Yes.
And this is December 8th of 2019.
Correct.
JJ is still missing at this point. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Lori talks to you about there being a danger that there's people after me. Do you know what she was referencing? Had she ever talked to you about that?
She just said that she felt Kay and her father and her other brother, not Alex, seemed like there might have been another, like a cousin or something. And possibly she put in there the police. It's kind of, lots of conversations together. But anyway, that they were all after her.
Did she ever express why these people were after her, why she thought they were?
Because she considered them dark. They knew who she was spiritually. And so their goal was to take JJ, and possibly her life might have been in danger.
And again, to the best of your knowledge, who was it that would determine if someone was light or dark?
And that was Chad.
And you talk in there to her about why she would say JJ was with you, correct?
Right.
And Lori makes a comment along the lines of she just needed someone so she didn't have to say where he really was. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Did she ever tell you where JJ was?
No.
We also hear Lori on there make a comment that JJ is safe and happy. Do you recall that?
I do.
At any point, did you ever have any additional conversations with her where she explained what she meant by that?
I don't think so.
So she just says he's safe and happy.
Yes.
And this is on December 8th of 2019.
That's right.
Last time you saw JJ alive was September 22nd of 2019, correct?
Correct.
And in this recording, Lori mentions Kay as being dark, correct?
That's right.
You say you've never met Kay.
Briefly, I have.
Just briefly?
Yeah.
At this point in time, did you really know Kay?
No.
Had you met her?
Briefly.
Just briefly. Yeah. What about the sister-in-law that Chad refers to? Do you know who that is?
He was referring, was it Heather Daybell? I think her name was.
Had you ever met Heather Daybell?
I had not at that point. I had never met her.
And we hear Chad in there as well talk about that Tammy was physically falling apart and she just passed away. Do you recall that?
Yes.
But yeah, in there we also hear Chad say that he knew Tammy was going to die.
Right.
And we also hear Chad say he knew he was going to have basically a second life.
Right.
Do you recall that?
Yes.
Had you ever heard or talked to Chad before about him believing Tammy was going to die?
He shared that information publicly at a few conferences that she was going to pass away at some point early.
And do you recall ever having conversations with Lori about the belief that Tammy was going to die?
Yes.
And did Lori believe that Tammy was going to pass away?
I believe she did.
Did she tell you where she got that information from?
From Chad.
There's a statement in there for someone who knows as much as you know, from Lori to you. Do you know what she's referring to there?
Well, she referenced also the word teachings in there, the teachings that they felt that their teachings of light and dark and multiple lives were more of a higher, kind of more of a mystery learning. And so she felt that I would be in danger before God for knowing that and then turning on all that knowledge that she shared.
So talking about the knowledge you had from their teachings, that you would have to account for that in the next life.
Correct.
Or I guess after this life, whichever
Correct.
way they said it.
Right.
And you talked about that you weren't always comfortable with things.
Right.
Do you recall what some of the things were that you were referencing?
So the idea of they referred to dark people as zombies at some point, that was a little different. Them getting together and being, married multiple times, it was a little different. They're just all their teachings that are not standard teaching from our church. I never, 100% believed it. There was some uncertainty there. So just any of those new ideas that we've talked about today.
And I think we talked earlier, and you'd indicated you were open to some of the teachings or ideas, but that you didn't fully believe them.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And in that recording, Lori, again, she indicates that she knows where JJ is, correct?
That's correct.
And Chad's right there with her when you're talking to her.
That's right.
Ms. Blake, we're right about at the noon hour. Is there?
I was going to say, I think this may be a good point to take it the lunch hour.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and do that. We will recess for the noon hour for 1 hour. I will remind the jurors again over the lunch break. Please don't discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Thank you for those in attendance for maintaining order pursuant to the court's conduct order, and we'll be back around 1 o'clock for continuing testimony.
All rise, please.
No mention of the motion. Oh,
yeah, that's strange. I mean, maybe they're going to break early. You know what I mean? Instead of having the jury wait, maybe they'll power through and then have the hearing after the testimony's done for the day.
Just checking real quick. If there's any update on Karen Reed? I don't see one from what we last saw. So, all right, folks, we're going to take lunch. We'll be back in an hour. And then again at 9 o'clock, me, Bob, Publicly Buzzed, to give you your background on Karen Reed, who potentially could have a full jury. We'll find out later today, I think, if they have a jury, but I think it's very, very likely, but we shall see. All right, so it's 2 o'clock Eastern Standard. Be back at 3. 1 hour, folks. We'll be back in 1 hour. I will set the links. We'll see you guys there.
See you on the